What's going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's our weekly live stream where we talk about news, culture, and of course our movie review. Tonight will be the last of our black and white through the ages, and it's a bit of a treat. We'll be reviewing a movie called The Housemaid from 1960, a Korean movie, an almost lost movie. This movie was almost lost to time, but luckily through the efforts of Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project, I believe, it was found and restored, at least restored to the best of their ability, is now available for viewing again. But we got all that stuff coming up.
It's pretty exciting. I think the movie's a lot of fun. It was one that I stumbled upon by accident. To be honest, I was looking for a different movie, and I was like, oh, what the hell is this Korean film from 1960? Oh, fuck it, I read the description. I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Let's check this out. And I kind of did a little bit of digging afterwards, and I didn't realize it was part of the World Cinema Project. And it talked about the whole restoration job that went through it, and how it was an almost lost film, similar to Metropolis. It's just I'm glad that we have Scorsese doing what he does to preserve movies. Nowadays, it's like I said, it's not as hard nowadays because everything is digital. I mean, you could probably still lose something. Infamously, Toy Story 2 was almost lost. It was only by sheer luck that someone saved it on their damn computer. They had a backup copy, and so the movie was saved. But the degradation of film is not like what it is, what it was in the past. Those old film reels decay, and it's good to see people who care that want to restore them. So it'll be fun to talk about.
Yep. So you have that to look forward to, of course, with topics of the day. But we'll get into that.
Andy, I don't know what we're going to talk about. There's no topics out in the news.
Just really boring these days, just with all the prosperity and the utopia that Joe Biden has ushered in, just as he promised.
It's constant fireworks and gunfire over here. A celebration.
Seriously. And me, I'm not even being facetious. Sometimes late at night, for some reason, fireworks will be popping off.
Yeah,
and sometimes gunfire. Allegedly, I don't know, because I don't know. I was told that by a neighbor that that one night when I did hear some popping off, it sounded like fireworks, but maybe I was just half asleep. But my neighbor was telling me that it was gunfire. I was like, oh shoot. Anyways, all that looking forward to. Of course, as ever, co-piloting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
Oh hey, what's going
on? Since I foresee that these topics are definitely gonna lead us down into some quagmires, I'm gonna forego the usual repartee. And
all right, that sounds. I was just gonna say that we do have some fun coming up this next week, which we'll probably discuss more next week. But it is official. We will be on a little podcast known as A Cut Above. It's a horror review with one of our past guests, John, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I mean, all right. I know. For Robert, that's a really big feather in his cap. Appearing on someone else's podcast. One of the first that we've been asked to come on. Because we're always asking other people to come onto our podcast, but no one. we as of yet up until this point we have as yet been asked to come onto anyone else's podcast. So yeah, I mean it is a pretty big deal, and I am looking forward to not having to worry about technical issues or like making sure everything runs smoothly and all that stuff.
That sounds like a them problem.
Yeah, right. It's like if they're like running around with their chicken like with the chicken with its head cut off, then that's a them problem, not a me problem. For once, so that'd be nice.
And you don't have to threaten to fire me.
Yeah, and I don't have to threaten to fire you. But all right, yeah, let's dive into some of the topics. Well, the two topics. I guess.
Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start locally, and let's cover stuff that's going on in California. For those of you who don't live in this communist hellhole, the governor, gruesome Newsom, Gavin Bang Your Wife Newsom, just was able to pass a bill just last week, making gas-powered cars illegal after 2035. I heard about this initiative like a couple years ago, and I know like I think through like some executive order he kind of got the ball rolling on that, but I think now like through the legislature he was able to pass it, which again is horrifying. So after 2035, like there will be no more gas powered cars allowed in California, or of course the already existing gas powered cars will be grandfathered in, but there just won't be any new gas powered cars.
Which I love the sycophants on Twitter and such. You're like because there's some genuine criticism. Our power grid is awful. We've talked about that before. Like this is one of many causes of some of the horrible brush fires that have ravaged California. For one,
right? What is it? Like 2 years ago, there was that one that was particularly blamed on the utilities company PG&E. Yes, and it's because their what is it? The infrastructure wasn't kept up because stupidly the legislature required that the utility companies pass incentivize solar panel adoption, and so they took the money that they would have given to the utility companies to help update or even maintain the existing power grid, but instead gave that as like kickbacks to consumers who got solar panels installed onto their house.
Yeah, and trust me, they barely help in that sense. Like I don't know if it's just because the technology is not there, or if it's just like one of these kind of scams that's going on. But I know like my parents tried to install one for their house, and it turned out to be a scam. My dad was like in a lawsuit for like 2 years with this solar company. And also infamously, there was what is that company, DC Solar? That was a huge fucking scam too. The guy that was the CEO of that company, I think he's in prison now for defrauding the government and defrauding numerous investors, and there's something along those lines. So I'm not saying all these companies are fraudulent, but DC Solar was like one of the big, they were one of the big companies that the government had attached themselves to. I mean, hell, they were a NASCAR sponsor. Like that's how much money they were throwing around, and it's just I'm not very convinced that definitely not on a grand scale, but even at on a more of a individual scale, like you would think like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense. You know, you're kind of it's kind of like the hybrid cars. Okay, fine. You want to get some better gas mileage. You're utilizing electric and gas. You know, it's okay. That seems pretty good. Same thing for the homes. Like, oh, maybe utilizing a little bit of like, you know, the natural electricity and solar power. That seems like that could work. Maybe save you a little bit on your power bill. But from what I've seen, it's been a disaster. Um, though that's not out in the news, and I think it's gotten to the point I don't even think like it's attached to our house, but I don't think it's even being utilized because it doesn't work.
Well, right, because like the so-called savings is minimal, and by the time like the whole like oh, like I'm actually selling my power back to the power company, that's at least like 5 years. That's like at least 5 years out. Kind of similarly with the Prius when it was initially released to the market. Someone crunched the numbers and it was like, you don't see a return on your investment for like 15 years. You have to have that car for 15 years before you start seeing savings.
Yeah, and it's gotten marginally better, you know, with some of the new ones, but not really, not really.
Yeah, it's like, it's again like they want to take like this extreme step for like like this huge investment for like minimal return. And it's also, it's like, it's not like they're saying like they don't like, they're gonna start, if this bill about like not having gas powered cars. It'd be one thing if they started saying like, okay, we're gonna put forth an effort to put more charging stations in this state. That'd be one thing, right? Because that's like again like that'd be a step, But what they're trying to do is like they're trying to like, they're trying to do like a 300-meter dash by just like jumping all the way to the finish line, instead of actually like taking the steps to get to the finish line.
Whenever this starts to, because I don't know if you've been around locally. There's an area of the valley, Northridge. I don't know if you've seen it on like by one of the restaurants. They have eliminated like half the parking lot for Tesla charging stations. Now, I don't know if those are just charging stations like in general for all electric vehicles, or if it's only Tesla.
Well, if it's branded Tesla, then yeah, because what's the
Like,
problem? The other problem with like EVs is that it's nothing standard, right? Because like the plug-in for a Tesla is not the same as a Chevy or name the car basically. It's like they're not there's no standardization there. So yeah, like you have like a Chevy EV, you can't go to a Tesla charger and charge your car, and vice versa.
Yeah, and the other thing what's going to happen is, so let's see, 2035, that's what, 13 years from now. And if the car companies have to have that quick of a turnaround, because 14 years, like it's really not that long. That's not that far out. Usually
No.
a lot of the testing to like car companies are going to go out of business. Pretty much all the major ones, like your Hyundais, your Kias, your Hondas, Chevrolet, Ford, unless like they have this like miraculous turnaround in like 10 years time. It takes about from start to finish in the development process, that takes about 10 years if you're really cooking, because
right, and let's say you have minimal, like you run into minimal like failures, like you're able to make a breakthrough like every 2 tests,
right? And yeah, it's like you're trying to find all the components to make this thing run. We already have a shortage on a lot of this shit, which I mean, people can't get freaking computer parts right now. Like it's like
processors, microchips.
Yeah. I still can't get a PS5. Like I've been trying to find one. They're just not available right now because of that shortage.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking car companies to we're gonna it's gonna be all electric vehicles because California is the big car seller.
Right.
That's where
car culture started out here. So
this is where Car Central is. So you are essentially like California doing this transforms the entire country.
That's why the old adage, so goes California, so goes the country.
Yeah, no car company is going to continue selling gas powered vehicles because the 90% of our market is California. We're going to cater to that, and the rest of the country is just going to have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. But to the point that you were making, Robert. Let's for the sake of this exercise, let's say okay, fine. Everyone decides to adopt EVs. What happens when we all try to plug in our cars into the walls of our house? All Californians. We will destroy our grid.
We're gonna have one of the longest blackouts in man-made.
Let's
since before electricity.
We're talking dark ages here, folks.
Yeah, before electricity was kind of like standard in homes. That's how big the blackout's gonna be.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's not hyperbole to say like dark ages.
That means
this will utterly collapse our infrastructure, our electrical infrastructure.
No electricity, no hot water, none of that stuff. It's just and because they're gonna have to redo everything. So unless like California is gonna kind of build up their new power grid, because it's already 50 years old, and now it'll be 60 plus years old by the time if they don't do anything, which is most likely what's going to happen. But then they're saying, a lot of the segments like, oh, you guys, you're so stupid. A lot of these charging stations are powered by solar. It's not going to affect the electrical grid. It's like, moron. No,
moron. Like how many hours of sunlight do we get every day? Like 12 hours,
maybe
12 hours, maybe. And like when I'm not even counting like the winter time, like which when we get less sunlight every day.
And the other thing that what people don't realize too, that in extreme temperatures, those batteries don't run as efficiently. So
like especially in extreme cold, like the batteries start losing, like what was it, like something called like the battery's memory.
Yeah.
Like when it used to be able to like charge like 95% of its capacity, it then dips into like 90%, and then sustained heat and cold will cause it to lose more of its memory, and so like what used to be 90% will drop down to like 82%, and on and on and on.
And the other thing that we've talked about it before, that look around like lithium mines, because that's what these batteries are made of. They're made out of lithium. Have you seen like what a lithium mine looks like and the wasteland that it creates? We also still don't have those batteries at best. I mean, I know the technology is getting better on batteries, but we still don't have a way to recycle batteries.
Particularly those lithium batteries. Once they're spent, that's it. There's no way of repurposing the lithium or any of the other components.
There's no recycle process. Now, will there be one in the future? Who knows? Maybe, but we don't have one now. And you're talking about these environmentalists. They're bitching about how like, oh, we need to protect our planet from like the horrors of fossil fuels and like global warming. It's like, you want to know what all that shit's gonna do to our environment? Like, because we can't recycle those batteries, and they don't There's no repurposing them. There's no nothing. There's no recycling process. They're just going to sit there and they're going to damage precious Mother Earth that you guys seem to care about, which they don't. And the other thing too, we have to if we had a government that was saying like, hey, like, not that we're going to go away from fossil fuels, but we should find alternate uses of energy. We talked about this too, like where, okay, you want to have some electrical cars, sure, okay, that's fine. Hydrogen powered cars, because they were testing that for, I think, Hyundai
Yeah,
still
and I
has.
mean, and again, hydrogen is one of the most abundant substances in the universe, and it's actually really cheap to create.
Yeah,
It's really cheap to
that's
create. So all you have to do is take water and then send it through like some sort of like some ionization thing, and then it draws out the oxygen molecules, and then you're left with hydrogen, which
yeah.
that's the H in H2O, folks. That's hydrogen, and so when you put just plain water, plain just drinking water like this, and like through some through some electrolytic system or something, it draws out the oxygen and leaves you with nothing but pure hydrogen.
And it runs on water, man.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's funny because my friend, he was like tinkering with that early in like the 2000s, like creating like these hydrogen cells. I forget for what for, but yeah, he was like tinkering around with them, um, yeah, I know there was like a lot of like this kind of like pie in the sky, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a car to run on hydrogen, but it's like I think Toyota like put one out too, like their Mirai
Yeah, the Toyota Mirai. I know
series.
Hyundai
Yeah,
was
yeah.
messing
They,
around with
they
that.
they built one that's completely powered by hydrogen.
Chevrolet never put it on the market, but they were testing it. I know my dad was one of the he was helping the test facility that's over in Burbank.
Mm-hmm.
He was helping them test the hydrogen fuel cell with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "That's brilliant!" See, and it runs great. Like it's a little bit different than a gas powered car,
Mm-hmm.
but if you really are saying like, "Oh, we care about the environment," it's what comes out of the exhaust is water vapor. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, so what you're doing to it is you're separating out the hydrogen from from the oxygen. You're separating it out from water, and as it processes through, it's kind of turning back into water. And it's water vapor that comes out the exhaust, and it's insane to me, and it's recreatable. You can like it doesn't we don't have to go to some other country to do hydrogen. We can
Right.
make it
Yeah.
right here.
Again, we can make it. We literally can make it. Like you get like a battery from the hardware store, and you get like just a jerry can, and you just like run it through. You can make hydrogen.
It's really, and so I was like, that's a great idea. But that's pretty much gone into the shit can. That's going to be a thing they're not going to do that, because guess what? That's not where the money is.
Exactly.
That's not where people are. That's not where these government officials are investing their money in. They're investing in solar because they have been. I don't know if they've been bought off by the solar and wind lobby or whatever, but why do you think that these guys are constantly pushing this stuff? Because they care about the environment? Well, no, they don't.
Yeah.
Just
Or
look at
they
China.
care about your quality of life, and of course not.
Yeah,
Again, I if it's Groundhog's Day. But what is it? We shared with you guys that there was Germany. They completely went wind for their power grid, and guess what? One year, well, like one season, like they had very little wind, and so they like the price for electricity went up like 300%, right?
yeah.
And then another season comes around, and crazy windstorms. And so guess what happened? They were they were paying people to take their electricity, or they were giving it away for free because there was like they created so much of it.
Yeah.
They're like they yeah, it's like they were giving it they were practically giving away the electricity because they had so much.
That and the other thing too, what people don't realize is that these in our own backyard, we saw the damage, the problem with wind and solar. That big ice storm that happened in Texas like a couple years ago.
That's right.
That was because of that. Like, because a huge sections of the Texas power grid are solar and wind. Those things froze during the winter, during that,
Right.
really.
During that cold snap. But yeah, and also because because Texas, um, they get little to no snow or ice in that area, and so the
Yeah,
construction materials and the construction code is different there. So yeah, you have like houses and apartments with thinner walls and building materials more conducive for that of desert climates. So
yeah,
and that's why people were freezing. It's not like this cold snap was like so bad. It's just they're literally not ready for it. It'd be like if a snowstorm hit Hawaii.
yeah.
There's no way they'd be ready for that shit.
No. So I mean, it's happened in our own backyard too. Like we're seeing those things fail.
Mm-hmm.
You also have another thing people don't, going back to the environment that they supposedly care about. Those giant wind turbines, and I don't know if you've seen like where they've all the stupid solar fields, like they have
Yeah,
essentially like destroyed forests and shit to put these damn solar panel farms in place, or these wind turbines in place, and
yeah.
it's destroying.
I've driven through Palmdale.
Yeah, it's fucking ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the hills, like that used to be quite beautiful, especially at at uh at sunset, but now like they're all dotted with like these man-made windmills that will deteriorate at winds that like as soon as it's hit with like wind that is not like rated for, like those windmills are like nothing more than like paper plates.
Yeah,
And all you have to do is like go on YouTube and look up for the footage like windmills and high winds, and like there'll be all these videos of these windmills just like disintegrating because like they're that they can't keep because those windmills aren't rated for like high winds. It's like it's like kind of like they're rated for like gentle breezes and so like it'd be like constant turning. But like if it gets hit with like a windstorm and they start spinning like crazy, then they're not rated for that and they're gonna disintegrate.
yeah, and it's a huge fucking disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I look at this stuff, and it just reminds me of like where you get these sycophants who want to just be like, yeah, the government, they're finally doing something, man. We're listening to Greta Thunberg and all the and John Kerry and Al Gore. It's like, well, all these people are wrong. Greta Thunberg is just a dumb young person. Al Gore's been wrong about everything in his entire life.
Right. I mean, yeah. And just really quickly, in his inconvenient truth, he said by 2014 or 2014 that Florida would be underwater. It's 2022 and people are fleeing to Florida.
Yeah. They're selling. Oh, by the way, they're also selling beachfront property.
There you go.
So insurance companies seem like, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah, I forget like who. What was it? Um, who was it? Uh, it's like something Pena, Mike Pena or something. Some like some billionaire or whatever. He was at like this conference or something, and he was talking, and like this lady came up talking about climate change and like ocean levels are rising, and he just like went off on her, saying have you ever looked at Florida? How many people how many apartment buildings and condos are being built up right now. If sea levels were rising, then no developer would get a loan to build those luxury apartments and condos because with every loan application for one of these developers, a freaking environmental impact or like that study would be stapled to that loan application with it, and every person applying for a loan would be rejected because no bank is going to fund a project where it's going to lose money. Like the project would be destroyed. No bank, no financial institution would back any developer.
Exactly. And guess where these people? Guess where like your Al Gores and your John Kerrys and your Barack Obamas are living on the fucking
all
coast.
by the water. Fucking what is it? Obama, like, he bought a place on Martha's Vineyard, like right next to the water.
So exactly. So they're all full of shit. There are people that investors and whatever that are they're putting all their chips into solar and wind for whatever reason, because once they get like all those government subsidies, they're gonna make their money back in like 1,000%. That it's because there's no really money to be gained in the oil industry anymore. Like, I mean, it's like you can invest $1 million in like the oil industry, and you also invest another $1 million in solar and wind power. Well, I mean, like, oil has pretty much kind of remained fairly constant, but you have this other industry that's like way down here, and you pump $1 million, you invest $1 million into that, and then you lobby the government to go towards that resource, and so that more gets made. Now all of a sudden that $1 million turns into like $1 billion, and it's like, oh wow, we all made our money.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's
if you're smart, invest in oil, take over the oil industry, and when solar and electric fails, you'll be freaking rich.
It's gonna fail.
It's gonna fail. It's not like oh, if it fails, it's when it fails, because it's going to fail. Because for the last like 15 years, they're telling us how we're at peak oil. Well, they're saying peak oil since like the 70s, but like now, but now it's like like especially in the early 2000s, they're because like, oh, we're going to war in the Middle East for oil and stuff like that. So because we're running out of oil, it's like, no, we're not. We are sitting on an ocean of oil. All right, and like under Trump, we became a net exporter of oil. All right, you can't say that we're out of oil when just 3 years ago we were the next net exporter of oil.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Shoot, like, yeah, all these and like all these all these oil wells that supposedly went dry, they're filling back up. All right, this is so like the idea that oil is like the remains of like dead dinosaurs and plant matter and shit like that is ridiculous. All right, it's oil. Oil is a renewable resource. All right, we're seeing it right now.
It's so just that's to me that is.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you thought that you didn't know like what fossil fuel meant.
No, I said because I've been hearing that term forever, and I thought it was just like, oh, it's this old technology. It's a fossil. It's a dying fossil. We need to go to these new sources. That's what I thought. That makes sense. That sounds like a fucking, they always talk about, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. That to me sounds like a fucking conspiracy. That sounds ridiculous. That it's like,
right, and especially because if that was the case, right? Why are they why aren't they finding the oil at exactly the same depth everywhere? Right?
Exactly.
It's like certain like the certain like amount of plant material and certain portion of dinosaur material like at the same level. It should all be at the same level then. Why is it like someone who digs like 500 feet into the ground finds it, and then someone who digs merely 30 feet into the ground and then finds it? It doesn't make any sense.
Here's the other thing too, and when all the near those oil wells that are, where they're tapping the oil,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a wasteland. That's the other thing that's crazy. Like it's
True.
that, and that's the thing that people don't understand. Like those lithium mines are a fucking wasteland.
Yeah.
But
They're hell on earth.
yeah, I mean, I know some of the oil wells are in a desert, but
Mm-hmm.
it was already like that. It's not because of the freaking oil.
Right. Yeah.
They were in a desert
It
before
wasn't
there
because
was
of the
something.
oil, and it wasn't because of the subsequent pumping of the oil.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if we lived in a sane society,
Mm-hmm.
we would be like, okay, yeah, well, why don't we do, like, so the alternate sources of energy? Let's do nuclear. Let's do wind. Let's do solar. Let's do hydrogen fuel cell cars. Let's do kind of mix it up. It's
Right.
okay. Like, the
Yeah,
nuclear
and
energy
for those
is
of
one of the most.
you who've been with us for a while, like how much I've been, screaming about about nuclear energy. All right, like you got all these people who want to talk about green energy and stuff like that. Nuclear, all right, nuclear. All right, on average, the fuel cells last for 6 years. All they're doing is boiling water to make steam to turn turbines. All right, and then
Yeah.
afterwards, after the fuel cells are spent, they're sealed within barrels and buried on site, on site of the power plant, and they are allowed to decay and and become inert after some odd years.
Yeah, because
That's
look
it.
at, like, look at places like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Chernobyl. What do you see around
Yeah,
those places? Oh, it's going to be a wasteland for a billion years. They
yeah,
were
they're fucking deer, nibbling on the grass in Chernobyl. All
and
right,
they don't
right
have any
now.
eyes and tentacles for antlers. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, look at Fukushima. Nothing happened there, or like, even with like, okay, now you might you might think this is crazy, but look at Hiroshima, Nagasaki. After the bomb went off, everyone just came back. Even the animals came back. The plant, like flowers started growing again, like after a week.
They built those cities back within like 10 years.
Exactly, and no one was, and
And you look at
there was no like people dying of radiation or people like uh, being born with like this because of radiation.
yeah.
You know,
Look at what it did to.
and look what it did to Carl.
Yeah, no, but like, literally, I just not that long ago I watched that movie, Drive My Car,
Mhm.
and part of that movie takes place in Nagasaki, and it's this giant city that's with lots of people. And it
Yeah,
was filmed on location.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like I'll refrain myself from going down like the whole fake nuclear bombs thing for now. But yeah, just like look at that. Like I know because like nuclear energy has been given such a bad rap.
I'm
And
not
just
saying
like
that there is zero danger. I mean, with anything, there's always danger.
right,
There's
and
always.
just to give context, everyone knows about Chernobyl or whatever, but they don't really know what happened in Chernobyl because guess what? Chernobyl was still online up until 2004.
Oh,
Because
Jesus Christ! I
yeah,
didn't know
because
that.
yeah, I didn't know about that until I looked it up because like the whole Chernobyl thing was happening, and then I just like I looked it up like the disaster, and
That means
then
people were there. That
yeah,
means
that means
people
people were
were
still
after the
there,
disaster.
right? Because if the and oh, that's what it was. It was because they were when the Ukraine thing popped off, they were talking about how Russian troops were encircling Chernobyl. It's like, why would they encircle Chernobyl? And then looking it up, it's like, oh, it's because it's still like somewhat active, like the first yeah, the first of the three remaining reactors was started. They started to shut them down in 2004.
Oh my God!
There was
You got
four reactors, and only one of them went into meltdown.
you got to be fucking kidding me. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
that's the truth. Yeah, there were four reactor sites at Chernobyl.
I didn't know that. Well, if they started shutting it down in 2004, what do you think that means? Oh, that means that people were running those power plants right after the disaster.
Yeah, this entire time. Yeah, and actually, yeah, and that's one of the bad. Well, okay, kind of bringing it back to California, but yeah, like just a couple years ago, they shut down the last nuclear power plant up in Northern California, which gave a third of the state its electricity. A third.
And we wonder why we're having all these power issues and why
Yeah,
our
I
power
mean,
bills are so
I don't know about
fucking
others.
sky high.
Yeah, I don't know about other states, but for those of you living outside of California, we have something what's called flex alerts, saying like, oh, don't use heavy appliances until after 6 p.m. Oh, keep your thermostat at 72 degrees or
Give me a
78 degrees, something like that.
Yeah, fuck that.
Right? Yeah, and supposedly we if you use your appliances or or you use a lot of electricity during that time, then you're supposed I heard that you're charged more.
Yeah. Oh, it's artificially charged more because
Yeah, of course, it's artificially charged more. So if you're if you're your meter or whatever it says that you're using a lot during that time, then you're going to be charged for more for that time. But yeah, we're in California, we have something called flex alerts, saying oh yeah, we're not able to produce as much power, so everyone just kind of turn off your refrigerators and shit.
2004. That's when they started shutting that place down. That means that people were there the entire fucking time and it was running.
That is correct.
That's. I don't think people understand what exactly happens during a meltdown. What exactly that means, because everyone thinks oh, it's just this huge. It's gonna create this nuclear bomb and we're all gonna die.
Yeah, that's not what happens.
I'm not saying that there's no danger. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But clearly, because like I said, in any industry, there's always danger. Okay. You can get hurt, but clearly, it's not like this world-ending disaster that the government or the governments involved seem to make it out to be.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everything's a lie, and I mean,
is this kind of similar to the whole idea with now I know a lot of this comes from a very skeptical source material but the idea of where William Randolph Hearst, who had invested a lot in forests to create paper and for his industry, and all the hemp stuff that was being developed, it was because of powerful people with money that were invested in other industries, getting stuff essentially made the hemp plants illegal, because hemp was used for a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the founding fathers grew it on their plantations and used it for all sorts of shit, rope making, certain cloth. Hemp is a very useful plant.
They built car fenders out of it.
Car fenders?
Yeah, there's video of I don't know which auto manufacturers were utilizing it before it was kind of made illegal, but they would make a very durable material, similar to kind of the acrylics and plastics that are used nowadays, but it's much tougher. And they would create they would make the kind of the crush areas of the car, the fenders, the front, out of hemp material, and it could take a beating.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but because of powers that be, and this is not like I'm not like, oh, you gotta, we just made illegal because of this. It's like no, people were not using it to smoke the plant. Okay.
Right,
Uh,
and like yeah, hemp is part of like the cannabis uh like family, or it's a species of cannabis, but it's like it doesn't have the THC.
yeah, exactly, and that's where we get movies like Reefer Madness, because that was a propaganda movie that was made to because it wasn't they were targeting a certain aspect of the plant that at the time I think what like barely anybody was doing. They were targeting the hemp industry, which was a better product in many different industries. It's like, oh, but no, we got to get rid of that because the the people with the money had invested in different things. So they lobbied the government to get this. We got to get rid of this. It's a danger to society. Similar to
Right,
music.
and that's why and that's also why there was a push for what is it, the demonization, or just like the outright exclusion uh, of plant-based medicines.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
because
the
the
same thing.
Rockefeller, because the Rockefellers came in, because nothing in nature can be patented. All right,
Yeah,
that was the rule set. Like nothing in nature, so you can't patent a dandelion. And that's how Monsanto gets around it, because they do like these crazy GMOs, and it's like, oh, this doesn't happen in nature, so like that's why we're able to patent it. So
yeah,
that's why they're able to patent an entire field of corn, because because the corn that they're growing doesn't occur in nature. But yeah, like the Rockefellers, because plant-based medicines were so effective, and they recently started their biomedical stuff through creating drugs through through the petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. That they started demonizing plant-based stuff, starting with hemp.
yep. So, like I said, yeah, it's just this is exactly what's happening now. You have a demonization of the oil industry. You have a
Mm.
demonization of the nuclear industry. Um, you have pretty like well, no one. I don't think that it got developed enough where like the hydrogen fuel
Well,
cell stuff like that would have been. I think, like I said, I think that's a much better idea, and
mm,
it's just as efficient as the electric cars, if not more.
mm,
Um, and it is much better for the environment,
mm.
but
Right, and
it's well,
because basically everything would be cheaper, because fuel prices would be way cheaper, because helium, what is it, hydrogen is something such an abundance, and it's so easily created that it takes very little effort to produce. Um,
yeah,
and so that's really what it is, because you see like these big refineries, and they belch out all this smoke or whatever, and it's just like, it's like the process. Yeah, the process of processing crude oil into gasoline. Yeah, it's a process. um, and funny enough, gasoline was a byproduct of another process, because people forget that initially, Standard Oil and stuff, they were making kerosene oil for lamps, and
yep,
the byproduct of making that kerosene was gasoline.
yeah,
um, and luckily for innovative minds like Henry Ford, who was able to take the gasoline, and use it as fuel for a car.
yeah. So it's just
So in a way, petroleum is I would say better, in that it's there. You're able to find more uses for it.
yeah,
Because like because again, not to hammer the point home, not to hammer the point too much, but with like the lithium, like once that's spent, that's it. there's nothing we can. That's nothing more else we can do with it.
There's no other use for lithium that I can
Exactly.
think. And like I said, with like petroleum, like yeah, there's it's utilized in a lot of different ways. I mean, it's a lubricant, it's a power source, it's a it's a
So it's a source for
energy source.
energy.
Yeah. So and most of the industries that they are investing in, like all the solar panel, guess what they use to make their stuff? Petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in a way they're utilizing the
Yeah, and like
industry.
and even for and even for the solar panels, they're using petroleum, not in so much in the material that they're making, but in the machinery that is used to dig up the rare earth minerals to make the solar panels, to make the lithium. It's all excavated and dug up by petroleum powered vehicles.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this too, like, but very quietly, like obviously the car, the car stuff, that you can't really stuff that under the rug, but very quietly they did this too. Like there are no more. I think now, as of right now, and I don't know when this took place, but I don't think that they can sell any more new gas lawnmowers, leaf blowers, hedge trimmers, any of that stuff. I think that's out. That's why, like, when you go to your hardware store, like, your Lowe's and your Home Depot or your local hardware store, there is no gas powered.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's why whenever when you're watching TV and uh, a commercial for a lawnmower or leaf blower or weed whacker comes on, they're all battery powered.
Yeah, like I said, it'll last a little bit. Like it's very effective for probably about 5 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
but that battery is just going to get thrown in the fucking trash, and it is just going to rot in a landfill and destroy the planet.
It's just gonna the lithium or whatever is just gonna leach into the ground. Maybe contaminate the groundwater, poison the land so it won't be able to. Uh, even if like they stop using it as a dump and allow for the you know uh, the decomposition process to happen and after say 50 years, like there's no way that they could grow crops on that or have
It is more.
anything grow on it.
They talk about like nuclear fallout and like, oh, it's going to take 1,000 years to decay, and like the world, the land is just going to be this wasteland. It's like that's what's going to happen with lithium.
Right. Yeah. And then again, and when people say that, I just say Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Chernobyl.
3 Mile Island.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island. Look it up.
But I'm saying, like, just I don't know if anyone's like seen like an expired battery. What happens to those things? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen my fair share.
Yeah, that battery acid is fuck. It hurts. Like it'll burn the shit out of your skin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening when they throw these into the landfills. That's what it's doing to the earth.
Exactly.
But that's all I have to say about that. It's just I'm so tired of the stupid sycophants on Twitter and in the news media and on our government. Well, the government is essentially bought and paid for by this industry. That's why they don't invest. That's why, like, oh, we're not trying. Like, oh, if we're really for the environment, it's like, hey, let's try a little bit of everything, and we're not necessarily gonna subsidize anything, but it's like we should have more. Like we should make laws that like, hey, we're gonna utilize a bunch of different things to so that we are energy independent. We're utilizing this and this and this and this, and that's how we're gonna power our country. That would be a smart move. That would be the wise thing to do. Because I think
I just think about like an easy question to be asked for people would be like, what would have happened if in let's say World War II we were dependent on all these different countries, to make our shit.
we'd be
what would have happened?
it would have been a fucking disaster. We would have lost.
Exactly. Yeah, because if we were dependent, on Japan for, you know, our vacuum tubes, and we were dependent on Germany for our, let's see, something equivalent to that time. Let's say tin. Let's say they were responsible for our tin, and who else was in? Oh yeah, Italy, and Italy was responsible for what's another era appropriate.
They were creating. They had like the market on like bullet production.
Yeah, okay, let's say lead. Yeah, so let's say we got our lead from Italy. We'd be screwed. We'd be screwed. There'd be no tanks. There'd be no there'd be no good times. There would be no Rosie the Riveters. Um,
Yeah, and that's the
why it's like why can we not make that simple correlation and be like we should make our own shit?
well, and like I said, that's what I talked about with all this inflation crisis. It is this is not a recent like problem. This has been a
No.
problem that's been growing for 50 plus years.
Right. Yeah.
All the
With the
dependence
whole
on
thing, yeah, the whole thing of like globalism and like I think where we really lost it was when we're trying to basically seduce China with capitalism.
yeah.
But those sneaky chinks,
Nah.
they took all the good bits and then left all of like or the what no they didn't take the good bits, but they were able to take capitalism and make it work for them.
Yeah. Well, and that is the biggest error of the Nixon administration was China.
Yes.
Because they were on death's door.
Yeah, I mean, if Nixon didn't go to China, then communism in China would have failed.
Yep.
But because because we thought that because the West thought that it knew best, and it's like, oh, as soon as they get a taste of capitalism, they're gonna drop all this communist, horse piss.
But it has been the failure of so many of these, quote unquote, like Republican presidential candidates. Like, oh, we're gonna spread freedom around the world. It's like they don't want it. And who gives a shit? You let them have their monarchy. Let them have their dictatorship that they love so much, or what?
Yeah, let them have their 40 wives and whatever,
and let them fail on their own. Mm-hmm. Who cares?
Yeah, who says like everyone needs democracy?
To be honest, I don't give two fucks at what goes on in Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or Kuwait for God's sake. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I mean, yes, atrocity that Saddam gassed his own people. Yes, but that's a them problem. That's a them problem. Like the spirit, the will of the people must first be ignited, and they themselves have to be like, hey, that's really fucked up.
Yeah, and the idea that I think Reagan in a sense did have it right. Like, I don't think it was always executed properly, but the idea was like, we'll help, like, support, it will kind of give you like aid in a sense, but you got to fight it for yourselves, man. Like, we're not going to send troops over there and like kind of fight your wars for you. But if you're saying like you want to stand up against these horrible like dictatorships or these or whatever, like we'll support you, but you got to fight it on your own. But and even that, like I kind of I'm okay with that in a sense, but in all honesty, it's like I'm fuck these. Who gives a shit what's going? Unless it's like something that is an impending like crisis for us, I don't care. Just like and people say, oh, that's such an American thought. Like, oh, you're so terrible, Robert. No, if I lived in England or if I lived in Japan or Korea or wherever, I would feel the same fucking way about my country then. If I was like, okay, if I was Korean, honestly, I don't give two craps what's going on over in like the United States or Mexico or like if the the border crisis from United States and Mexico, but I lived in Korea, I don't give a shit. That doesn't affect me. What I'm more concerned about is stuff that's happening near like my border, like with the stuff with China and Taiwan, that or North Korea, for God's sake. That's at my back door. That's something I need to worry about. That's more important. Who gives a shit what's going on with the stupid border crisis in the United States or Mexico? I don't care.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of like why our this live stream has kind of refocused locally, because it's like who the president is shouldn't really matter that much. Like national politics, important, yes, but not as critical as who's your mayor, or who is representing you on your city council, or who even the dog catcher is,
or the school board.
or I mean, now more than ever, like who's on your school board and who's making decisions about your kids. So yeah, that's why we on at least on the live stream, we've been kind of more trying to get stories and news topics that are more local. Um, I guess just to close it out really fast, because I think we've talked this one topic to death. But what is it? Just recently in LA County, there is a measure being put up for a vote about whether or not hotels should be essentially forced to take homeless people in to their vacant rooms alongside paying customers.
Bullshit.
Completely, like, it was one thing when during lockdowns and things like that, these hotels were empty of visitors or paying customers, and they were being compensated, of course, to house these homeless people. But now they're saying like, oh, like, why are you just letting these rooms lay empty? Why don't you help and take on help some of these people, and give them a place to stay for a couple of days. And it's like,
man, I love that passing of the buck.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, you have the means, or you have the resources, so why don't you? It's just like, well, fuck you. It's like, how are you gonna put upon someone in their business?
We're gonna talk about this in the next topic. This is once again how our dumbass government works sometimes, where we're gonna target the symptoms, not the actual problem.
Right, and it's like, yeah, I remember because I just before we started streaming, I caught a little bit of I forget who it was. It's a YouTuber that I follow, and he was sharing this this piece done by, of all places, CNN. And they had like the business owner talking about like how, like, when he had homeless people staying, like how, like, how some of them would destroy like the rooms, like like they would like right on like the TV, or one person like set alight the curtains. I mean, luckily there wasn't a fire. He said luckily there wasn't a fire, but yeah, like the curtains were destroyed, and a wall was like defaced, and it's just like, it'd be one thing if it was just people down in the down in the luck, and who just need a place to stay. But it's like there's literally mental patients, mixed in with the homeless people, and it's mental patients from outside the state, because people forget that that there was these mental patients that are being sent to California, like with one-way tickets,
Yep.
bus tickets to California, because other states, like the mental facilities were being shut down or being defunded, and so like they didn't have the resources to look after these homeless people anymore, so they sent them all out west.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the advocates for this measure, man, it was so crazy because he was talking about how like, oh, this, it's not all crazy people. It's people, students and single mothers and da 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 da. It's like it's like they're the ones who's gonna benefit most from this. But it's like no, you're wrong. You're completely wrong. Are there those people? Are there kids who just falling on hard times, or are there single moms or whatever? Sure. But the vast majority are people with drug addictions, with like serious mental problems.
Well, they're doing that. They're doing that to inanimate objects. They're destroying a room. What happens when whatever demons that they're or visions that they're seeing that's causing them to do these things? When they're next to a live person. What do you think that they're gonna do?
Yeah, when Larry and Sally from Omaha are here to to go sightsee around Hollywood, and Larry goes to get a bucket of ice, and fucking Tina, who has night terrors and is addicted to meth, thinks that Larry is her abusive dad, and shanks him to death.
Exactly, and that's happened. That's the
yeah. I mean, you think I just came up that with the top of my head. That's like a real scenario.
Yeah, and that's horrible. That's not that it shouldn't it should never have happened. It never should have been allowed to happen. Meth addicted Tina should have been in some sort of detox center or an institution to help her with her schizophrenia or her night terrors or whatever the fuck is causing her and she should be allowed to live in her filth, which is, it doesn't matter whether they're on the streets or in some random hotel room. They're gonna live in their filth. That's the thing. It's you're not fixing anything. You're not fixing the symptoms. You're trying to solve the symptoms, attack the symptoms, but you're not actually attacking the infection.
Right, because that hotel owner, the way he described the room after a stay from one of these unhoused people, it's just that's how they live already on the street. You're just picking the street and putting it into these room, and you're taking it out of sight of everyday people. But
that's what it is. It's out of sight, and you're essentially holding these business owners, these hotel owners, at gunpoint. By government gunpoint. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're gonna do this. And I doubt that they're gonna get. Maybe they're gonna get some sort of cutback, but I doubt it.
Right. I mean, they're getting compensated for taking on these people, but what about the damage that they do? Are they going to be compensated for that?
Fuck no.
Fuck no. Or what if an incident does occur and it gets back to a review that they leave on Yelp or Google or Travelocity or whatever.
Hotel goes out of business. The hotel and their owners and employees are liable. They're gonna get sued, not the government. And It's the government's problem.
Exactly.
And that's who should be targeted.
Exactly.
Because if they don't comply, if they don't comply with the government mandate, they're in trouble too. They're going to be targeted by the
they're going to be harassed, and they're going to they're going to be targeted by whatever governing body here in LA. Be like, oh, are you up to code? Oh, let me oh, look at that. We actually changed that. This was a 7065B. Now it's a 7065D. It's oh, you have to have your your pillow mints have to be at a 90-degree angle and not at a 180-degree angle. Sorry, you're not up into compliance, and again, that scenario sounds ridiculous, but it happens.
Yeah. It just we live in like the weirdest timeline. I wish we lived in a saner time. You know, I honestly I do feel like I was born 70 years too late.
I understand that feeling. I understand that feeling.
I'm not saying that time was perfect either,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, it's better than what we're living in right now. In some arenas.
In some aspects, yes. Some aspects. I mean, do I love the ability to walk around with a supercomputer in my pocket? Yes.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that's awesome.
That's fucking awesome.
The entertainment
But
of
do I want to live in a time when, you know, fucking mental patients are allowed to just roam around freely and like defecate wherever they please, and and the government like is basically puts a gun to your head and said do this thing, or you will essentially end you.
Yeah,
That I could have done without.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's. I guess we should head into the next topic, right?
Yeah, we should.
All right.
But yes.
I'll be right back.
All right, you handle your business. Yeah, the next topic is, of course, uh, the proposed debt forgiveness of student loans, proposed by the Biden. Um, and you might be surprised because I actually have a totally different take on it than what's being presented in the media, and even with people, uh, those on the right. Um, and some of you might be surprised at this. And no, I'm not. No, I'm not agreeing. I'm not necessarily agreeing with the president, but I have a different take on it. Let's say that. Um, but I definitely want to wait until Robert gets here to start talking about it, because I think I know it's kind of lame that me and Robert kind of agree all the time, but on this, I think we will have points of agreement, but also points of disagreement. So I don't think it'll be all just like, oh, me and Robert are just lockstep with each other. Um, but
Well,
yeah.
when I think of this topic, because what are the standard things that the news media on any side are talking about? Like, oh, this is just Biden trying to buy votes. Okay, yeah, maybe, sure, yeah, that's true. Or how like, oh, this is just gonna create like more inflation. Is that gonna do it? Yeah, it is. And I know you have, in a sense, you have skin in the game. You do have student debt. I mean, I don't. I went into the military so I could pay for my school, which I did. But I'm not denigrating you. You did what you thought was right at the time. You were kind of like, and that's kind of like what I think most of our generation, has been kind of. Oh, you got to go to college. Like, if you don't go to college, like you're wasting your life. You're a loser. Kind of. That's what we were told.
Right. I mean, it's one could hardly be blamed for going to school in an environment where you're essentially inundated with the idea of going to college, or equating going to college with a better life. Since the time like you're in elementary school, because I remember, it wasn't expressly said like, oh, go to college, have a better life, but we had like college sports day, and we had people come and talk to us from like the various schools, like students, and even sometimes professors and things like that. Since the time at least from what I can remember, since elementary school, and so
Yeah.
it's I don't think it's fair to especially like with the arguments like, oh well, especially maybe I'm jumping a little ahead here, but because like a counter that the that the left or like even like the White House has been putting forward is that you hypocrites, look at all these Republicans who took PPP loans, and were forgiven their loans. But they don't want loan forgiveness for students. And I would say that that's slightly disingenuous, because the PPP loans, it was baked into the cake that that the loans could be forgiven. Uh, but for student loans, there is no such measure. There is no such. The escape hatch essentially is sealed or welded shut because you cannot default on your student loans.
Nope. Yeah, well, here's the other thing too. Like, what they're like, oh, well, these Republicans, they did this. It's like, well, you remember Too Big to Fail? Because I do, where all these banks, big companies were bailed out by the government. That's essentially like, oh, that's loan for we're forgiving their debts and their loans. That's the same fucking thing. It's like I said, we can make that argument. We could continue around with that argument, like and it's a good argument. But that's not the. But the point
but I don't think it's fair that especially with the argument being presented is like, oh well, the PPP loans, that was for something essential, like which I have a different take on that as well.
Right.
But it's disingenuous to say like, oh, it's these people chose to take on that debt, so like, why are they trying to shirk their responsibilities? But again, like, how you can hardly blame someone who's been indoctrinated. Let's use that word because it applies. They've been indoctrinated their entire life to believe that if they went to school, that they would their financials will be better. And then and so I think it's disingenuous to say like, oh well, people like they chose to go to school, they chose to get these garbage degrees or whatever. It's like that's not fair. That's not fair because because especially like people in our generation, even younger, they were constantly being told, oh, go to college, get have a better life. That's not, and so it's not fair. You can't say like these people. It's like saying someone who walks in, someone who falls into a pit and you cut and snaps their ankle and it's like, oh well, you got yourself into that, you can get yourself out of it. Like, or even if you see someone get pushed into a pit and snaps their ankle and it's just like, oh well, you're in there now. Get yourself out. That's for me the same thing, because I had because I similarly had something similar like that, because after high school, like I wasn't gonna go to a 4-year university, and my sister, she was really big on me going to school, even though like I showed no aptitude for scholastic endeavors, but I mean it wasn't until later in life that my mind that I discovered this brilliance that I had. But basically she told me like as I was about to graduate high school, it's like, if you don't go to school, you can't live at home. So it's like, did I really choose to go to school and take on this debt? I mean, yes,
no.
When I went to my ridiculously overly priced art college, yes, I did choose to go, but again, it was at a time when I was trying to get work, right? I was going to photographers and asking, oh, can I just come and can I just be an intern? Can I just learn on the job? And oh, can I just learn? Oh, can I be your assistant and learn this thing? I'll even like work for half the rate of of anyone else, right? But they constantly told me, oh, you don't have the education. And so what did I do? I went and started to get the education. And then guess what happened? After I got the education, they're like, oh, actually, you know what? We're looking for someone with experience.
Yeah, it's that, and that's where I want to target, because what is being shown in the media, that is people targeting the symptoms, but it's not actually dealing with the infection that's causing the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea where for whatever reason in this country, and I don't know if this is a worldwide problem, but definitely in this country, we have a problem where most industries do not require special education.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah. A bachelor's degree. No.
it does it doesn't require it, and for generations, it was never needed.
Mm-hmm.
My parents' generation, especially my dad, he he has an associate's degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and he only did that because it was just it gave him like a small leg up on the competition. That's why he did it. That's mainly why he did it.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it was not required. He could have easily just gotten into the industry that he's in. Like he said, he knew he had already been doing that stuff beforehand, and most things can be learned on the job. We had for a long time in the world, we've had apprenticeships, where you have somebody that's been doing it for decades that is training new people to be in this industry, and when they gave the okay, hey, this guy can do it, that was it. And it's this person said he gave their yeah, this guy can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
They're good enough to be able to do this type of profession, and that was all you needed. And in most cases, that's all you fucking need. Okay, I mean, and that's why I kind of think that trade schools are the way to go right now, because that's as close as we're gonna get with it to that generation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right. No, like even now, every time I talk to a young person, they're like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." I instantly go into
go
the
to trade
trades.
school.
Go into the trades. You don't like, especially like the ones that say like, "Oh, I don't know what I really want to do." It's like, "Oh, I think I'll just go to college and kind of like tread water or whatever." Like, don't do that shit. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. It's like don't spend like $20,000 a year, just to twiddle your thumbs.
Yeah.
All right. You can already do that for free. All right. Go into the trades, or just get a minimum wage job, and twiddle your thumbs then. And then at least you'll be still making money while you're doing it, and then
Yeah.
maybe you can find out what you really want to do. But then I
And
also incentivize them, like, hey, go into the trades because fucking plumbers makes at least 6 G's.
no,
Electricians for sure make 6 G's. Or
oh, dude, yeah,
six figures, six figures, six figures.
yeah. And so but I don't know when exactly it happened, but then all these companies started and I really do think that there is this, it's kind of this incestual relationship that happened,
Mm-hmm.
because even the big colleges, your Ivy League, your Harvards and your Dartmouths and all those places,
Mm-hmm.
were they pricier than the normal state colleges and all that stuff? Sure, but they weren't they're not like what they are now, where it's just
Right.
it's
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, like
it's
a
insane.
person used to be able to afford Harvard with just a summer job. Like you worked in the summer, you saved your money, and you're able to make enough for you to live and also pay for your semester at Harvard.
Yeah,
Fact. Fact.
but here's where things started to go awry. I don't know where it started first, but you had, I don't know if it was businesses that were uh oh, you know what, now you need a bachelor's degree to do this, for just these random jobs. I mean, obviously, if you're going to be a doctor, or something, a lawyer, or an engineer. Yeah, okay,
Right.
yeah, there's
Something with a really specific set of skills, or requiring a specific set of knowledge. Yes, you're right.
exactly. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you need some additional education and training for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but most jobs, like I said, don't require that. You don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
But like so businesses start to require like random like jobs that have never needed it before. Like nowadays, it almost seems like you have to have a bachelor's degree to work at fucking McDonald's. That's crazy to me.
Right.
Um, you have to, or then the government started to subsidize a lot of these schools because they were giving like federal loans, and it's like, hey, if you build up your school, like, or if you have like, because they were basing it based off like their I think the amount of people that they had at their school.
Mm-hmm.
So artificially, these colleges started to build all these different things that they didn't really need because they were getting in government money. And so it just became this like rolling ball of like incest that all these people are involved together. And now it's gotten to the point where even like a regular like state school, like you got your dean of inclusion and like the super dean of inclusion and like the
Right.
gender study dean and like all these different deans and like middle management like
Right.
bullshit that
Well,
doesn't need to
let's
be
just
there.
call it what it is. It just blowed. It just blowed. Because that's what happened. Because like as soon as like more students came on, they're like, oh well, we need all these people to like fill these roles. And like the administrative bureaucracy grew, but the quality of education didn't grow either.
Yeah. Well, and then you have the well, and this is a little bit of an aside, but like college sports, what happens there is that's as close to slavery as you can kind of get. Like, oh, we're giving them an education, like but these schools are making millions of dollars off of these kids.
Right.
They cannot receive any benefits from like they're the ones that are doing the work, not the
Yeah,
school.
they can't benefit from their labor.
Yeah. They can't benefit from their labor if they're found to have, because a lot of these like recruiters and scouts and stuff like, they are under the table giving these kids money
Right.
as which is the right thing to do because, uh, they're not actually getting an education. When you're getting a football or a baseball scholarship to these schools, come on, or basketball, you're not going to class. I'm sorry, you're not getting an education. You're at you're doing an underwater basket weaving gender studies bullshit degree.
Yeah. Or
No,
you're getting a degree in Gilligan's Island.
exactly. You are there to play sports. That is your degree.
Mm-hmm.
You are trying to go pro. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the
I
reason
mean,
why.
and at the very least, you get a communications degree, so then you can like after if you're one of the chosen few to go into like the major leagues and play professionally and then play for a little bit and then you're able to transition into doing like sports commentary.
Yeah, I mean but the fact that like you're like this top college pick, yet you can't benefit off of like your time there because you're making the school millions of dollars.
Right.
USC especially,
Yeah, through
their football
merchandise
program is
sales,
fucking cool.
through advertisement. Yeah.
They're
Let alone video games now. Video games. That was the big thing, because they were like
yeah,
using because like they were starting to do like EA started doing like college football. And they were using like the likenesses of the
yep,
players,
yep, yep.
and
And
so like
that's where it's like, why are we not making money off of this? Like
mhm,
the students, not the fucking school.
right, not the school.
Um, and but like I said that, and I actually I like college sports. Like I like watching college football. I like watching college baseball. Like I like that stuff. But the fact that like these kids can't like I'm not saying that they should have like like the like the what you would get in like the NFL or MLB,
Right.
but they should get like
They shouldn't be driving around campus in Bugattis and shit.
no. I don't think that they should do that either. I think that they should. Sure, okay, your thing is sports. You're gonna make a little bit of money off you're essentially an employee for the school because you're a student employee. In that case, you're like a
Right.
TA.
It's like kids who get jobs at like what is like the cafeteria or whatever.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that you should make like $100 million, but I think like a small stipend like so that you can actually like live, not like where you're bumming like you're getting like money under the table from like scouts, and then like and then when it's like revealed that that's happening, it's amateur athletics, how dare they take money, we're going to strip the school of all their titles and we're going to take back the Heisman Trophy that they
kick
didn't
them out of the
deserve.
division.
Yeah, it's like, really? I hate it.
Right.
But no, but it's this weird incestuous relationship that goes like from like businesses, like I said, it's gotten to the point where it's almost like McDonald's is for to be a burger flipper, you're going to need to have a bachelor's degree and 20 years experience before you can get a job there.
Right.
It's
that was the joke for a long time, because you started seeing, like, I literally started seeing like these advertisements for jobs, and you're like, entry level, but you need to have 5 years experience. It's like that's a contradiction in terms, because entry level is where you get your 5 years of experience.
And then you get these businesses. It's like, oh well, we're going to give you an internship, and you won't get paid for 5 years. So I said, well, I can't do that. Okay. Now I understand. Like it's even like when you would have like apprenticeships, like back in the past, they got paid. Okay. It's.
Right. I know, and it's like they definitely need to reform the apprenticeship laws, because in the old days, the apprentice, like, yeah, he would work for you, but he couldn't benefit your business, you know. So like if let's say like you're a cobbler, you make shoes, you weren't the apprentice wasn't allowed to make the shoes for a client. They could like maintain the equipment, or they could make patterns, or like prepare the leather, but they couldn't take the orders of the client and make the shoe.
Exactly.
And so and nowadays it's kind of trickier, especially now with being more digital, and like what's an apprentice supposed to do, if because it's not as though let's say like you're like, because this is what I know, like, but let's say like graphic designers, you can't just like practice making flyers or whatever like all day, and not work on a client's flyers. Like you have to find something to do.
Right.
And so like so something has to like regulate the apprenticeship part, especially nowadays when things are becoming more and more or less like physical and more digital.
Like I said, and like when it comes to like these internships and stuff like that, you have to pay these people. Like you can't just like let them toil away for years not getting paid. That's just
Right.
that's not right. That is slavery in a sense. I'm not saying that they should be paid like like the top guy in the fucking company.
No, of course not.
Or even like the guy that's been there for like 5 or 10 years at the company. I'm not saying they should be paid their amount either, but there should be you have to pay these guys, and if they don't work out, you get rid of them. They're interns. Fuck them. It's like you need to intern somewhere else because you're not working out here. You're not fitting in, or you're not
or
getting
you're just not cut out for this specific
and
trade
maybe
or whatever.
that company, like they have to go to another company, get another different internship, like in the same field. Maybe it works out better for them there, but you got to pay these people. I don't know that now is this why it is even allowed for like places to have like these internships where they don't pay people is beyond me.
I'm right with you. I'm right with you, because because like when I graduated school and I was looking for jobs, a lot of the places that I was looking, they're saying internship, you don't get any money, but you'll gain experience. Exactly, you'll gain experience.
Oh, bullshit. It's like, fuck, I would say, fuck you, dude. This is, it's like, you know, thankfully, I haven't been in anything that I've done so far where it's like, I haven't had to deal with that shit, but I hear about this stuff from my friends, and it's like, why would you subject yourself to that?
You know,
And
it's yeah,
why
and
would
it's
any
and it's and, it's, and it only happens like in the creative field. You know, it's just like, oh well, you know, like
but
it's like, but
that's
he's
the
like,
thing.
oh, like, but think about like the next guy who's gonna pay you for your work. You know, oh, you're gonna like, especially like if you're doing something like big for like a big company, like you know, they always go like, oh, but the exposure, you're gonna gain so many clients from this one job that doesn't matter that I don't pay you for it. It's like that's
No,
bullshit.
yeah,
You know,
but
it's
here's it's
it's
not
the it's you
it's
know it's the line from the Joker, you know, or from the Dark Knight, the Joker. He says like when he says like, oh, I'll kill Batman. It's like, oh, then why haven't you done it yet? And the Joker retorts like, if you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. But it's not just the creative field, Andy. It's going into other fields like
Right,
even
right, right.
like in like
I'm
law.
just relaying my own experience. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
but it's not that it's going into the medical field. It's going into the law field. It's going into all these other like fields. Like well, yeah, we need to have you need to actually have like 10 years experience. Like well, how am I supposed to get 10 years of experience when like it doesn't there's
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah, and
like
again, that's why. Yeah,
what
yeah. It was becoming a meme. It was becoming a meme. You know, it's like uh, again, I can only relate it through the lens of the creative field, but it's like, oh, must know Photoshop, must know InDesign, must know, um, must know graphic design. Has to have 20 years experience. It's like and like position entry level. It's just you know, like these people like the people. I don't know if people are just retarded or just evil, but it's like the whole point of entry level is that's where you gain your experience. Everyone, and that's what that's the ground level where you come in and begin like help build up your career. It's like if someone who has 20 years experience, like they're not gonna go for an entry level position, because
exactly.
they have the
And I
experience. They have the experience to go and start off like in upper middle to upper management.
it's kind of we talked about like Ace in the Hole a few weeks ago, and the idea like at the end of the movie, Chuck Tatum is like, I'm gonna make you $1,000. I'm $1,000 a day newspaper man. You can have me for nothing, and then he dies.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like I think what they want. They're expecting like your super experienced Chuck Tatum's that are just gonna come in like they have nowhere else to go, and they're just gonna give them all this like greatness at an entry level position for nothing.
Yeah.
And they're fooling people into enslaving themselves.
Right. And that's actually a perspective that I wanted to get into a little bit, because kind of like the with the whole PPP loan thing with because of
You're
lockdowns.
enslaved, and you're enslaved to these companies making nothing.
Right, exactly. Like it's let's just call it what it is. It's evil. It's evil to that you entrap these kids for 15, 30 years, paying off these loans. Not even doing sometimes not even doing the job that they went to school for. So like yeah, you have like these people who went to get their education degrees or to get their bachelor's in communications, but then they end up working at as a barista. And again, nothing, not knocking baristas, but if you train to go into do like child psychology, but then the only job that you're able to get is as a barista. It's like should the students still like have to repay that debt?
Yeah. Well, that's not a terrible question. It's like who's really at fault, and I don't. In the majority of cases, I don't think it's these kids who are manipulated and fooled into thinking like this is if I don't go to college, I'm a loser. My school and like the society is telling me like I'm not gonna get a job. I'm gonna be a loser forever, and they think that's their only recourse, and they don't even know what they want to do. They go in as undeclared, and they're wasting $20,000 a semester, and that's just for the tuition. That's not including
Yeah, including
books,
books and
room and
supplies, room
board,
and board, yeah, travel.
and you're learning bullshit. Like honestly, if you're going to for a degree for, let's say you want to get into like the like law, right? Why am I taking any science courses whatsoever? There's no reason. I don't need to be taking chemistry or I mean you can make actually let's go with like the medical field, because I think this is more obviously you're taking like math and science courses all day long, chemistry, but
Biology.
organic biology,
Yeah,
all this shit.
organic chemistry.
Yeah, there is no reason for you to be taking like English courses.
Yeah,
There's no
English
reason.
lit or creative writing or anything like that.
History. Oh, but you need to have a certain amount of credits. For it's like why? Why do I need to have all
Exactly.
these bullshit
Yeah,
credits?
I'm. Yeah, again, just to lay it back to my own experience, when I went to art school, I knew I wanted to study photography, but because like after like the foundation year, which is just their version of freshman year, and and during freshman foundation year, they inundate you with like kind of like the basics like drawing, um, shapes, colors, things like that, um, sketching, things like that. And then like particularly in fine arts, then you go into the fine arts courses, and then you get kind of get the buffet platter of of sculpture, of painting, of photography, of kind of like art, like art history slash philosophy. And I can understand that art, like art, philosophy, history stuff. But then like why, especially for me, because I knew I wanted to study photography. Why would you make me take a painting class, or why would you make me take a sculpture class? I mean, I ultimately found it at least the sculpture class very enjoyable. But the first day of my painting class, I went up to the instructor and said, "I hope you like Jackson Pollock, because that's all I'm going to be doing." you know?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, and it's like, what did it do? All it did was waste my time and made me pay for classes that I didn't even want. Or
That's
like,
what that's what they're hoping for.
mm-hmm,
They want you to waste your time and money.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, like I could have, if let's say that they were a little bit more looser, right, with at my school, then like I could have I could have taken a class kind of to help me sharpen my photography skills. But then I could have spent the rest of the time applying for jobs, or trying to find an internship during that time. Like you're a kid, you're living off your your disbursement from your financial aid. That was a time that I could have gone and like really, try to, prepare myself for when I got out of school. Because that's also kind of the bad thing about schools, is because like they don't prepare you for, the outside world. And I mean, yes, at the time, like I wasn't just like this fresh faced kid out of high school. I was older than a lot of my classmates, but
Same.
again, it's just like if I had the latitude to like kind of craft my learning, then yeah, I would have like taken photography classes, and like some of the kind of requisite like like English classes, or like art history classes. But I would have foregone like the painting class. I would have foregone the sculpture class, and then left myself open to go and pursue and try to get jobs at at places, that eventually what I wanted to do, which is photography, and like go work at a fashion company, go work at a portrait studio or whatever.
Yeah.
But but just quickly,
Like
I think but I think it's evil to saddle people with debt that they cannot they cannot fault on. It's like, because
and like
again, I referenced the PPP stuff. It's like, oh great, like, because again, I don't think it's a fair comparison, but not because it's because these people chose to go to school and get into debt, for the promise of what was that?
but I'm saying, but not really. They're
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not
yeah,
choosing anything.
yeah. For the promise of like bettering their lives in the future, as opposed to, oh yeah, we're gonna vote for these loans that with an escape hatch, so like we didn't even have to repay these loans. Um, I think that's evil, and I think I think the Republicans and people on the right are missing a huge opening uh, to rebrand themselves. Because countless times Republicans and conservatives are branded as like callous and unfeeling. Um, when they could take this opportunity and it's like, oh yeah, why not cancel a little bit of that. And fair credit to Biden, he wasn't even saying that he was going to forgive all of their debt, but he was
Yeah.
just gonna forgive like $10,000 of the debt. you know
I I think what would go a long way, Andy, is it's not necessarily about just like, oh, we're just gonna, it. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. Okay, great. A little bit of debt is canceled. Cool, great. That. But here's the thing. There's gonna just be. It's just gonna keep going, and there's gonna be more debt. The problem is you have to break the system. You have to stop the insanity of, you know, businesses, outside of like maybe a few industries, they have to stop. Like, I'm sorry, you don't need a bachelor's degree for half of these jobs. You don't need it. Is it, as you progress with like, and like, hey, like you're going in, like you're a up and coming, like, lawyer or what, or even like, so let's not say that, because you do have like your law schools and stuff like that, which are important. But like, let's say you're in an industry, it's like, hey, we would like to see, we want you to progress further because we like you, we think you're very good at what you do. uh I think it would benefit you if you went to such and such school, and we'll pay for it, and you stay with us, like you sign a contract and you stay with our company at, like, and you kind of you come up with a contract of like, hey, I'm going to work for you for 5 years at this rate, um after the schooling is ended, kind of something like that. And or there's something where like you don't require a bachelor's degree for some dumbass like position. I'm sorry, like, because that's something that you could be taught on the job. It's laziness in a lot of ways. And what you're learning in those institutions is not going to help you at that job. It's not. We need to
right.
break
I mean,
that
yeah,
system.
ideally yes, but I mean, I
It
think we
should be
should. I think we
illegal.
should, attack. I think we should tackle the mountain in front of us, and not like the one that's like 50 miles from us.
Well, that's the thing.
But I do agree with you that we have to change the system. But I think
Well, we also need to stop like all the damn government subsidies that that these colleges are taking advantage of. And like, that's why you have to take all these dumbass classes that you don't need, and you have to buy
right,
the
yeah,
specific.
it's essentially, it's the same thing as when you get a new phone and it's like, oh yeah, you have 64 gigs of space, but half of that is bloatware, so really it's only 32.
Yeah, it's like,
Um,
sorry, we're only using the third edition, not the second edition, even though I only changed a period in the book. And
right,
it's like,
yeah,
give me a fucking break.
yeah.
That
But
shit needs to end.
but I think culturally I think we should address this, and I think again, um, if Republicans want to rebrand themselves, or they want, if they, because again, we're not. I know Republicans are not going to attract the extremists on the left, but if you want to, if you want to go after those, moderate people, then yeah, you entertain the idea. So, oh, why not? Why not? Why can't we? And again, because Biden only said $10,000.
Like I said, I'm not completely against the whole thing. I don't think that my problem is that, okay, great, it's gonna help a few people, but then we keep the system in place, so it just like what happens 5-10 years down the line,
Right,
we just
and I don't disagree with you on that, but and I think again, because like the way the fucking Marxists went about it is they did the long slog through the institutions or whatever, and so and I mean yeah, like that's, but we can't get we should tackle the mountain in front of us, not the one that's 50
no,
miles down the road.
like
And
I
I
said,
think but we have to eventually get there.
I know. I'm just saying that if we don't, we can help with the symptoms now, because there's nothing that we can really do other than target this one symptom. But if we don't get to the infection at some point, we're just going to have more of these symptoms. It's going to be the same damn thing, 2 years, 3
Right.
years, 5
But
years.
yeah, but again, it's like, okay, but again, we have to track some, we have to attract some people to our side. And I think this might be a way. And again, this might be a way, But again, it's cultural too. It's cultural, uh, because it's like because all I've been hearing is that, oh, like these people, again, like the standard line, it's like, oh, these people chose to go into debt. And like the fear mongering tactic is like, oh, this will just raise inflation, or this will raise, or this, it's gonna be passed on to, the people that didn't go to college, or like, oh, the trucker that just was a trucker and just didn't go to school. It's not fair to them. But
and that's, like I said, that's not. I agree. Yes, you're right. It is. However, I'm not like, it's really unfair to a lot of these kids who were lured into this by the society in general. Maybe it was their parents. Maybe it was, their school, the businesses that they want to do this certain job. And in reality, you don't need a degree, but they're being kind of lured. Oh, if you don't have a bachelor's degree and a certain amount of intern experience, you're not going to get this job. And if you don't get this job, you're a loser. Like that is horrible. And they're being forced to make decisions at 16, 17, 18 years old that they shouldn't be making at that age. They're not, we're in a society now where they're not equipped to handle that. Hell, there's 25-year-olds that aren't equipped to handle that decision.
Right. But the Democrats want the 16-year-olds to be voting.
Yeah, we have a horrible system that has our parents' generation, like, that's what, like, oh, you can just you can have a job and go to school. It's like, it's not like that anymore, because there's been all this corruption and other bullshit that's been been put into that. And like I said, I understand like where a lot of our parents' generation is coming from. Like, my parents aren't stupid. They see what's going on. I look at they're like, yeah, this is horrible. Like, this is not like what it was in our day. And it's like, yeah, so they understand. But a lot of people within my parents' generation are like, oh yeah, you got your Elizabeth Warrens, like, you can just pay for your way through school, blah blah blah. It's like, no, right, dumbass.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like, oh, you need to have grit. You need to do it the way I did it. I just got a job during the summer and paid off, like, motherfucker. Like,
listen,
like, again, yeah, my school, like my personal, like my private, art college was basically an Escalade every year, and I was there for 3 years. So that's like 50, like 60,000 a year.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Is the job I'm gonna be at school, is that gonna pay me like $8,000 a month?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Are they gonna pay me $8,000 a month to be the janitor at the fucking school? I don't think so.
exactly. So yeah, it's like yeah, like and so that's why I think uh, like people on the right, Republicans, they have to like you know really think about like their messaging on this. Again, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree that we should, but it's just like you know we should at least entertain the idea because it's like throw a little compassion the way of to some of these kids
Right.
because because again it's not the same as it once was where again you could like people like 50 years ago they could get a summer job and pay for Harvard. That's
Yeah.
not how it is anymore.
Nope.
And all these people who are saying all these like boomers who are coming out saying like, oh well, these kids like they chose to go to college and take on the debt. No one was putting a gun to their head. It's like that's fucking disingenuous as fuck.
That's not true. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, they didn't have a gun to their head, but they had a lot
But
of,
you had social shame pointed at their heads as if it were a gun.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
again, so the messaging around it is wrong in my opinion.
like I said, there is a lot of corruption in a lot of different areas that does need to be targeted, and it's not at the kids. It's not their fault in most of these cases. It should be, you could say like the primary school, like our K through 12 education, which is that is a whole indoctrination, peer
Yeah, it's
pressure.
utter garbage now. It's not fit for purpose.
You could target like the businesses that are there's like, oh yeah, we'll give you an internship, we'll pay you an experience. Like, no, you're not gonna pay me an experience. You're gonna fucking pay me. I don't necessarily, like I said, I'm entry level, I'm learning. You don't have to pay me as much as like the guy that's like been here for 20 years. I don't expect that. But at the same time, I'm not gonna give you 3 years of my life where you don't fucking pay me. That's 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 not right. You have like the schools with all this like where you're forced to take classes that you shouldn't have to take, where all this pork, so we can pay for such and such this and this and this dean and this and such like department. Like, no, we don't need all that. If
Yeah,
you
I mean,
it's
yeah. Again, relating back to my own experience, um, when I was there, like every single year, the tuition increased by like 1.3 or like 2.1%, and a lot of it like went to the new building project that they had in mind because
yep.
they built like a new dorm and a new cafeteria and more facilities so like they could bring because my school like there's a fashion division, but
Mhm.
that was like somewhere else in LA near kind of like downtown, so they can go and get like so the fashion kids can go and get like their materials in the fashion district. But now like because of the tuition they got from me, they were able to build out more facilities on the main campus where I studied, and build out more dorms and libraries and cafeteria.
Yeah, and
So
it's really like and my wife, who was going to school while she is an international student, they fucking gouge those people to death.
mhm,
She was going to a community college when she first got here.
mhm.
They were charging her 4 times what they're charging regular people. 4 times.
Jesus.
And like and when she did transfer to a state school in San Jose,
Mhm.
like that just went up. Like, yeah, it's still 4 times, but like it almost like she was paying every month. She was having to pay $3,000
Every month,
every month.
$3,000.
So the semester is like what, 4 or 5 months? That's like $15,000. Whereas like everyone else is paying like maybe like a quarter of that. That what, and because they, like I said, they take advantage of the international students. Why? There's no reason for that. But you want to know why that they keep charging more and more and more and more is because the government is subsidizing all this stuff, and so
then there you go. That's
we need this amount of money. So the government is giving them money based off of like the more people that, so they're building up their school bigger and bigger and bigger to store more and more students that can't really afford to be there, so that the government gives them more and more and more and more money. That's what's happening.
And I think that's where we should really tackle it, is because we have to get the government out of schooling. Because guess what? It's the government that holds the debt.
In the federal loan, where you can't even like declare bankruptcy because
exactly, and that's what pisses me off. That's what pisses me off about them like making the comparison with the PPP loans, because you say, oh yeah, because we voted and we said that we could have an escape hatch, as opposed to with the student loans is that they welded the escape hatch shut. Like there's no defaulting. Yeah. There's no defaulting on that whatsoever. You are saddled with that to the day you die, and then probably your kids will probably have to deal with it.
That should be illegal.
Exactly.
Should be able to give somebody that type of loan. That's not right.
Exactly. So that's why I was really frustrated with people's especially when the right like hit back, because they're saying like, oh well, these loans were designed to be forgivable, and and like they were justifying it because it's like, oh this is a time during like the pandemic, and like the way I see it is the PPP was a bribe to go along with the COVID narrative. All right.
Yep.
And that's what it was. It was a bribe. Don't call it a loan. It was a bribe. You didn't have to shut down your business. No government agent was going to come down to your store and put a gun to your head and say, shut down your business right now. No one. No government agency was going to come and do that. But they did it anyways, and they took the money, and it was a bribe to go along with the lockdowns. And so that's why I was really getting annoyed with like especially right-wing people who are saying like, oh well, these loans were necessary because the government was like forcing our business to be shut down. Like, no, they weren't. The government was not forcing you to shut down your business.
You just cowered under like whatever fake whatever paper tiger was being thrown at you.
Exactly.
And that's that was the thing that pissed me off too. Is like, why are you cowering to this? No, stop it.
Exactly. No, no government official came, like, at least federal, because I know there's, again, yes, kind of more local example. There was that bar restaurant like Tin Horn Flats, like in Burbank, I believe, where like the city came and like put up like basically like shut their doors. Yes, okay, but it's like that's the government, exercising its force wrongly, of course. But it wasn't the federal government.
It's just so it's frustrating listening to like I mean the Democrats are just like we already know their game plan, but like it's just like when you listen to like the Republican side too, it's just as infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that everyone on that side is saying the wrong things, because that's not true either. But the majority of them, it's just like clearly you're either honestly like if you're just gonna pretty much say the same fucking thing, that like the other side is saying, it's like just stop. Like I don't need this. You're focusing on the wrong things, and you're not helping the situation. You're making things worse.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, and people, what is it? Like the old Breitbart quote. It's like, oh, never punch right. It's like that doesn't make sense either, because
I punch right all the time. because a lot of them are idiots too.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with holding your side to account.
Exactly.
It's and again, it's biblical. Iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
Is what we're called to do. It's like if your side is messing up royal, let's say if you're on a soccer team and your teammate keeps kicking the ball into your own goal, it's just like you don't just sit there and just like watch him do it over and over, giving points to the other team. You stop them, and be like, stop that. The goal is this way.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like I said, our take on this, we're not we don't agree with the left, obviously, but at the same time, we're not agreeing with the right either, because most of those people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Just like the left, they don't understand what the hell they're talking about.
And again, I'm not saying that I'm the expert on this, but I've at least thought about this, beyond like 3 seconds.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing: it's like, more so than myself, you have skin in the game. You do have school debt.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate. I put myself in the position where I don't have school debt.
Right.
And I knew that like everyone is going one direction. I was like, and I'm one of those. I'm an asshole. I was like, everyone's doing this and telling me I have to do this. Well, fuck them. I'm gonna do my own thing, and I did. Now, has it hurt me in some ways? Sure. I probably haven't made as much money as I could have. But at the same time, I don't regret a single decision I've made. I think my life has worked out the way it was supposed to. I am very happy with my life, the way it has turned out. I think that through the successes and struggles I've had, it has made me who I am and a better person. And I think I'm much more, I hate to use this word, but I'm more nuanced. I understand. I can look at something
and I know you hate that word.
Yeah, it's been stolen from me.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not just, if it's not this thing, it's gonna be this thing. Most of the world doesn't work like that.
Right.
And this is one of those things.
Yeah, and I might be different from like a lot of people, because like if I was able to pay off my loans, and then the next day, like they announced that they were gonna like forgive all student loans, but just like only like if you haven't paid it off yet, I'd be okay with that. But again, that's just me.
It's not gonna, like, would I be like, well, fuck, like, okay, well, it is what it is. But I'm not gonna be super pissed off. It's like, well, you know what? I did the right thing. I did what I was supposed to do. And there's a lot of people that were lured. It's like a scam. They were lured into one thing. Maybe was it a dumb decision? Absolutely. But it's like asking like a 5-year-old to solve these calculus equations. It's like they don't know what's going on. They're being lured and told that they have to do something, and if they don't do something, they're gonna ruin their life, and they're gonna live on the street, and they're the worst type of human being there is. And if you don't figure out what you want to do at 15 years old, and you commit to that, then you're an awful person. It's like, that's not right either. There's people that haven't figured out what they want to do at 35.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people forget about like second and third acts. It's like not everything needs to be done within the first act of your life. There's people who discover themselves in the second act of their life, or even like all the way into the third act of their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like this idea that you need to figure everything out while you're still young is just it's patently absurd.
It really is.
But yeah, again, just I guess I think we're kind of winding down on the subject, but I would like to leave this topic with one final idea. But people are freaking out about like if we forgive the debt that what is it, that it's going to cause inflation, or the government is not going to be able to function or whatever. It's like to people who are like who are right leaning and Republican and who are like small government. It's like why are you not like why is this not a good thing? It's like we already think that the government is too overbloated. So why should they have why should we keep giving them this money?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's like because everyone bitches and moans about like, oh, the government's too big and too bloated and bureaucracy and da 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 da. It's like, well, and like
Yeah,
and then they have a spending problem. They keep spending money that we don't have. It's like, well, technically they don't even have this money, but
yeah.
in the form of this debt. It's like they technically don't even have this money.
That's true. You're right. And I know like one of the big arguments. Oh, it's just going to create more inflation. Like, yeah, you know what? I think that's partially true, but they've already like both sides have been spending money that they don't have for pretty much all of our lifetime, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it probably started like once they got once we got off the gold standard. But for sure, they've been spending money that they don't have, in our lifetimes.
Hell, read all the Frank Oz books, like all the Wizard of Oz books. That's the whole series is about how the country's gonna get fucked by getting off the gold standard.
True. Last thing to think about, it's like again, people complain about big government and bloated bureaucracy, and the government spends too much. Like they don't have this money now, right? The debt is not money. It's just it's not money, but we're supposed to pay into it, so then they could then take that money and spend it, send it to like foreign countries that hate us, or to bloated bureaucracies. Reducing the debt, reducing the amount of money that the government gets should be every small government person's, dream come true.
Anytime I can give the government less money, I'm very happy.
There you go. So something to consider. All right. Again, like I'm not saying that I'm an expert on economics or whatever, but I think like culturally, spiritually, like some kind of debt forgiveness could be beneficial. But to Robert's point, yes, we do need to rework the entire system so that so that it's not just a band-aid fix.
Yeah, no, and like I said, and my fix is not communism, okay?
Right, yeah, let's be clear.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I think people should be paid a fair wage. They shouldn't be allowed to toil in internships for years without getting paid. I think that's bullshit. I think that
shackled with what is it? Shackled with
unending debt.
Yeah, unending debt. There you go.
That you can't even declare bankruptcy and get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump has declared bankruptcy at least 10 times.
Every
big business
has declared bankruptcy at some point in their life, if not multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. Businesses fail. It happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But you bounce back. But this, you can't bounce back from it. You are stuck with this forever.
Yeah. I mean, if the trade-off was that you default on this loan and your credit score goes back to zero, I would be fine with that.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That's very fair. It's better than what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know why? It's because it's a government loan, and they want to have their fucking money.
Mm-hmm.
They're the biggest mafioso out there.
Exactly. These are mafia tactics.
Like the Prohibition era has nothing on these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people you ever notice that the whole like mafia scene is kind of like quieted down? You know, and you know, and it's not that the mafia went away. It's just it turned into the government.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's our take on it. I think it's a very different take than you're going to see on CNN, MSNBC,
Or hell,
Fox
even
News,
Fox News, yeah.
and hell, even on some of the alternative outlets that like we talk about too. Like, you know, no one's talking about like the way that we're talking about it, which I think is a much more realistic look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because again, you either like say, "Oh yeah, like you know, forgive my loans, you know, govern me harder, daddy," or it's like, "Oh, you know, you need grit, and you know, I paid my, you know, I only had a summer job and I was able to pay for my school." And, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's like
Well,
those people chose to go into debt.
Yeah, even guys like, you know, who I do respect on, you know, on YouTube and stuff like that, like, you know, like Mr. Reagan. You know, his thing on it was like, oh, you know, the Democrats are just, you know, they're utilizing, you know, conservative money to buy votes, and he's not technically wrong, but at the same time, it's like I think he's missing the picture, the big picture. You know, like once again, no one's talking about the actual disease, the infection that is causing this problem. You know, they're only talking about the symptoms and like what, oh, we need to fix this and this. It's like, those are band-aids. Those are not going to actually change anything, because, okay, fine, we stick a band-aid on this gaping wound. Well, you're just going to die from blood loss, you know, late, you know, 10 years down the road. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I hope this was, you know, I hope our perspective is something that you know that people will take away from it and like you know really think about it. You know, I hope this perspective like sticks with people. You know, it gets them to think about their own maybe biases or you know maybe their own perspective on this the debt relief or the debt forgiveness topic.
Yeah.
So.
You know, and you know something. It was funny, you know, because we talked about too, like where, you know, back when we were doing our review on Birth of a Nation, and that, you know, what interested us was like, okay, well, what do the Confederate soldiers have to say about their aspect? And then it kind of went into like, oh, well, let's listen to like what the slaves had to say about their experience, because there are a few that we do have, you know, people who had been former slaves that we have audio recordings of like their experience. And one of the guys that I found the most fascinating was the guy's like, I refuse to be in debt to anything. If I can't pay for it right then, I ain't paying for it, because I am not going to be in debt to anybody, because that's slavery. And this is what this has become. It is modern day slavery. And when you and the government, these businesses and the colleges, they are creating slaves.
Yeah.
They're not creating. They're
right.
not
Yeah.
creating.
And the colleges and the government have become the new slave masters or the slave owners.
They are not. Yeah. The lure is that they're creating educated, contributing members of society, and, you know, to help the country. That is not what they're doing. They're creating, you know, uneducated modern slaves. That's what's happening, and it's not just one race; it's every fucking race.
Yes, everybody. We all the niggas now.
I think that's a good way to end that.
Yeah. For sure it is. For sure it is.
Oh, man.
All right, let's get into our movie review and we'll close out the night.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Let me hit everyone with the synopsis and we'll get going. Just to remind you all, tonight's movie review is The Housemaid from 1960. Again, a Korean movie by director Kim Hee-young. No, wait, that's not it.
Well, that's like it'd be Kyung Kim technically in.
Oh yeah, Kyung Kim. Yeah. Oh, I was right. Yeah, Kyung Kim. Yeah. So here is the synopsis. Piano composer Dong Chik and his pregnant wife need extra help around the house, so they hire a housemaid whose precociousness soon gives way to a troubling behavior. Tensions between her and Dong-sik lead to an affair, and while the pregnancy ends in a miscarriage, it also results in the maid becoming obsessed with killing the entire family, starting with their older son. Soon, their comfortable home becomes a physical and psychological battleground.
Well, I won't go into like, normally I would ask like, how we first came to this, but
Yeah.
I know how you got interested is because I showed you this film.
Yes.
And I came to this film kind of by accident. I was looking for a completely different movie. I was actually looking up Japanese movies at the time, and for whatever reason, this one popped up, and I was just like, man, this sounds kind of interesting. Let's check this out. And it rocked my fucking world. I'll tell you that. And apparently, this is we talk about like the last week we talked about the Vengeance trilogy and how like they're like you got sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, Lady Vengeance. Apparently, this is the first part of a trilogy from this director as well. There is the Housemaid, and there was followed by Woman of Fire and Woman of Fire 82. And this film does have a remake from 2010 by a different director. But like I said, that's kind of how we came to the film. And what were your where do you want to start? Like, how do you want to talk about this? Like, what do you want to talk about? Like your thoughts about it? Do you want to like what was your initial reaction to the film?
What was it? Yeah. I really didn't have any expectations for this movie. Other than what you had described it, you were, you fell in love with this movie, and I generally, I generally trust your taste in movies, except for a few, very specific.
Clown, all right? This is not Wizzo the Clown.
Yeah. But yeah, after watching it, I was completely, thrown back. Especially at the time when this movie came out, which is like the 1960s, and especially like in Korea, especially knowing some of the limited things that I knew about like Korean history at that time, but which was clarified, when we watched that little mini documentary about it, about Martin Scorsese's efforts to restore this movie, and then also
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, Bong Joon-ho's, director of Parasite, Snowpiercer, and the like. He gave his perspective on it.
If I was gonna have someone do the remake, I would have had him do it.
Right. Although he in the interview he said like, oh, I would never touch this movie.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, someone else did, but I haven't seen that movie, but I would give it a chance just to see, just because how great this movie is. I want to see like if someone is able to even come close to replicating the magic.
Even if it's like 75%, I'd be like, okay, this is actually a good movie. But there's something about this one that just, like I said, it knocked my fucking socks off.
Yeah, and subsequently knocked my socks off too. It was, there was a lot of elements there that to this movie that were very familiar and also like kind of blew me away. It felt very like Hitchcock, and as you said, like it felt like very like Twilight Zone.
I see elements of the Twilight Zone here. Hitchcock. I think this is also something that it really I guarantee that this has influenced Korean media going forward. Like I see a lot of like, a lot of these like modern Korean dramas and stuff like that. I see the origins in this film. All the sexual intrigue and all the the drama between like the characters and the tragedy.
Yeah, and actually, I would say that this was truly groundbreaking because in the interview of Bang Joon-ho, he mentions it as well. But like this movie was truly groundbreaking in that they talked about like the female sexual desire.
It is super sexual. Like I was shocked.
Yeah, not that it was like it had gratuitous nudity or anything, but it really dealt with like feminine desire, like feminine sexual desire.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was truly astonishing to see, especially for a Korean movie made in the time that it was.
Yeah, because there was a lot of censorship at that time. There was, it was kind of a very different time. Like if this movie, if this type of movie was made in Korea today, be like, oh, no big fucking deal.
Right.
But back then,
right. But yeah, people may not know this, even though Korea was a republic. The leader was, in all intents and purposes, a dictator. He had compliance officers going out, to making sure that men's hair wasn't too long or women's skirts weren't too short. And like the expression of like one's desire was, even in like the mundane of like having your hair long or wearing a shorter skirt was curtailed. And so that's why this movie was so groundbreaking, because it was made in a time when there was like such restrictions on even just like on simple desires, that this movie came out and was like, yeah, we're going to talk about female horniness.
Yeah, and if you think about it, and now I don't know if this is true, but I wonder if Stanley Kubrick watched this before he did Lolita, because Lolita also deals with a very uncomfortable subject, and like it does have a lot of that female like wanting, both from Shelley Winter's character and from the girl who plays Lolita. There is like a wanting from those characters. They have a sexual desire, and it is but overall the movie is like it just is super uncomfortable, just like this one. And this also has like, when you look at it, like a lot of like the new Hollywood aspects to it, like like stuff that we get in from like Midnight Cowboy and Easy Rider, where you start seeing a lot of the uncomfortable subjects that are being approached. The Housemaid deals with a lot of that stuff.
God, I was about to say something. God, I lost my train of thought.
So something else too, like about this movie. I was also mesmerized by the girl who plays the housemaid. What the hell is her name? That is eun-sim, as her character name is Myung-suk. She's the housemaid, and whoa, both you and I were like just captivated by not only her performance. She looked sexy as hell, but like it's sexy and scary at the same time. But
right,
like
she rode that line. She vacillated, between those areas of being like sexy, but then also like psychotic.
Yeah, and like that's just great fucking acting. Like she really stole the show.
That's right. Yeah, but speaking of movies that might have been influenced For this one, it's Fatal Attraction.
Oh, dude, yeah. This is Fatal Attraction before Fatal Attraction.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
That's the point I wanted to bring up, because
I
you
wonder
have.
if the director of that film or like Michael Douglas watched this before they did this movie.
Right, because Fatal Attraction is a story about a psychologist who sleeps with his patient, and she develops like this unhealthy obsession with him. Similarly with this story, you have like the piano instructor, who he's kind of like the what is it, the heartthrob. And all his female students are like kind of wet for his D. Uh, but yeah, and so like there it's like an opportunity presents itself to him, and they do the deed, and that's when like the switch is flipped, and you know um, the character of what was it, Myung-suk.
Yeah, Myung-suk, yeah, is the housemaid.
Myung-suk, like she starts off as like this kind of like innocent like little girl, like having her hair in pigtails and like wearing white, to kind of like turning into like this just deranged like succubus, like wearing her hair down and wearing like a very sexy like black dress.
Yeah. Oof.
And it's just like she rides that crazy hot really rides that crazy hot line.
Well, she starts because after she because she had been luring our main the main character was it Dong-sik to some sort of sexual encounter with her.
Mm-hmm.
She wore white before that happened. After they did the deed, after like that, which is also just that scene alone is also like, holy shit, this is from like 1960 Korea. Like there's a lot more skin and like
like a lot of sexual tension. Tension.
There's not a lot left to the imagination. I'll just say that, because there's that whole scene in the rain, like her clothes are wet and like just there you see more than you think that you'll see. She's wearing white all up to that point, and then she drops her clothes. They do the deed, and that's where she starts to go into the black, and everything kind of changes with her. And that's where like her I don't know, the insanity part.
Her demeanor changes completely. And I don't know, like if she's like she was always just crazy, or it's just the D was that good that it drove her crazy.
Dude, that's a good that's a good question. Like what was she always like that? Like I mean, I have a feeling that she was always kind of an outcast, because she was doing things that like she was smoking, like where like all the girls were like, oh, she's a bad girl, like and the only one that was her friend was the girl that like got her the job to be the housemaid. So was she already kind of just like this kind of crazy outcast, kind of just did whatever she felt she wanted to do? This is clearly not her first time having sex. I'll just say that. Like she's a loose woman. But like like has she had these other experiences with other men, and like she's kind of like at this place in her life where she's like kind of desperate and doesn't have any friends, because people look at her like, oh, you're a whore, you're a crazy whore, pretty much. Because I think like the other girls, like they've shunned her because they probably think she's a crazy whore. But like her friend kind of like, I don't know if she like still like believes in her, like, or like, oh, we're friends, like I'm not gonna think of you that way. And so she tries to get her this job, not thinking that like, oh, she maybe she's made some mistakes, but like she's not gonna this is a married man. She's not going to go this direction. Because I think, like, you know, she probably hasn't gone that far in the past. Like, she slept with a lot of people, but not a married man. And that's where, like, she underestimates where she's going to go.
Yeah, but this movie was, fantastic. Like, some of the shots were just, like, really great. You know, like, the shots, like, the tracking shots between, like the girl's room and then, like, the piano room.
Yeah. Well, and see, this is also, you know, I think a lot of people are not going to, because I think this is the first. A lot of this guy's early movies are lost to time.
Right.
You know, we're lucky that we have that. You know, he's done other movies that, you know, in before this movie came out. So he's an experienced director at this point, and you can definitely tell based off
you
the
see it.
photography, like he is doing something really. Like that tracking shot, like between her, the housemaid's room and the piano room. You know, that is like really brilliant, like the way that they did that. And then, you know, this guy did movies afterwards, but yeah, this is an experienced director really knowing what he wants. And we're getting some really great scene work.
Absolutely.
What do you think about, like, okay, so why don't we talk a little bit about our main character's family? Like, what did you think about them? Like the kids, the wife. What did you think about them?
You know, I thought they were pretty standard fare for Korean families. Although, yeah, I did notice like how, you know, how well off that family was because again, you know, kind of like because again, referencing the interview that we watched with Bong Joon-ho, he was talking about how like, oh, you know, this is a well-off family because you know they have a new house with a second story and like, you know, most houses in Korea were just single-story dwellings.
Do
and, you know,
you think that I think that this director and this movie influenced Bong Joon-ho in a big way because when you look at a lot of his movies, especially like Snowpiercer and Parasite, about the idea between the gap between poor and wealthy.
socioeconomic statuses. And,
yeah, that's a big factor in those movies. I think this movie is a huge influence on him.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because there was a lot of signifiers. You know, not just the house because it was 2 stories, but they had a piano and like the wife she took side jobs because if you're well off, your wife didn't have to work. It'd be the equivalent of of a family now. Like the husband makes enough, but maybe not quite enough, and so like the wife will have an Etsy store or whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of like that, and then like they're able to afford a television.
Oh
because
shit!
again,
Yeah, that was a deal.
yeah, because again, back then a television was a huge fucking deal.
That was a big deal in 1960 America having a TV.
So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the commentary on like the socioeconomic status, especially and like the lengths that people would go to protect their lives because once the wife found out of the husband's indiscretions, she was like on board, but not necessarily because she loved her husband, which I mean she admitted that she does, but it was more to protect the life that they were able to cultivate for themselves.
I think it was a mixture of all of that because I think she did genuinely like. I think she because when you look at our main character, I think he knows that he made a huge error, and he is genuinely disturbed by what he did. And you can tell he hates himself for what happened.
Right.
And I think the wife sees that and she realized like, I still love him. I know that he cares about us. And really not only do I love him, but the idea, our livelihood is, we have to be together. Our livelihood is tied up in us being together and having this family. And if I just choose to leave, all that goes away.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, again, because she's a woman who understands. She knows. She's a woman who can tell the time, and like she's not a spring chicken, and like she's a woman with with three kids, on the way, third kid on the way. She knows her market value, and is not, and she's not going to be able to like snatch up the next well-to-do bachelor.
And I think the other thing too, she also realizes too that it's like she almost blames herself in a way too, where she's like, if I hadn't demanded us like having a better house, or if I hadn't demanded all these things, we wouldn't have needed the housemaid. We wouldn't have needed all this stuff. We were happy in our old house. Like, yeah, it was a little
Our
bit
old
tight,
single-story house.
yeah, everything was fine, but like, it was because I demanded so much of you. That's like why we're here. And I think that I think that's, she's putting a lot of undue blame on herself. And to be honest, I actually have no idea why. Like, when it comes to infidelity like that, like, because I'm not saying that like I would be completely immune to that, but to me, there's a lot of like, it's a foreign idea to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm married. I've pretty much been with the same woman for 10 years. So, I haven't exactly been, like, I'm not like a guy that like sleeps around, right? But I'm not saying that like, oh, if there was some opportunity that like just presented itself, that like maybe that I would be completely faithful. I don't know, but but it's still, as this version of me, I would say like, it seems very foreign. Like, even if some like woman was advancing upon me, I'd be like, get the fuck away from me. It's like, I don't, you can say whatever the fuck you want, like, but you're telling me this, I'll get to the school before you do. I'll get to, I'm gonna make sure that, my story is heard first before yours, because I didn't do it. And you can say whatever you want to say, but like, yeah, it's not true. And I would imagine that, like, I know that my wife would trust me, and that's really all I care about. Like, fuck it, if I lose my job, whatever, if they don't want to believe me, but as long as like my family believes me and they trust me and they're behind me, that's all that matters to me. So I don't know if I would necessarily be in a position where I would give into that. And so then again, it also makes me wonder, like, what was going on with our main character. Why do you think he gave in, like, with Dong-sik? Like, why do you think that he gave in to the housemaid?
I don't know. I don't know 100%, but it. What was it? He was away from his wife. His wife was on that trip to the in-laws, or
They were gone for a day. It's like
was it
or
just a
for a
day?
couple.
Was it only a
Yeah,
day? I thought it was like at least a week.
I thought it was like a couple of days, like, because he was with them for a short time, and he came back early, like a few days early, like, so it's maybe
Oh,
like a couple of days.
okay. Well, but then yeah, and then also
If you're like already like, you know, if that's all it takes, like, being away from your wife like 2 days, you're wanting to fuck somebody else, that's a problem.
I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. Just being away from just having the opportunity. But then also there was it wasn't it's not as though what was it? what is it? The other girl, the girl that came to learn piano, she makes her big confession to him about her longing and her desire for him, even though
Well,
he is married.
this is also like the third girl that has come on to him
Right.
in like throughout the course of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not like maybe these aren't the first women, but there's women that have been throwing themselves at him too. That also could be at it, like where he just like maybe there's some sort of like flattery there, like where he's like he yeah, like it and like I think the other thing that really played a huge part was the fact that well, at least in our sense, based off the movie, the first girl that he ends up rejecting, and he kind of sells her out. She supposedly commits suicide.
Right. Well, yeah. And so, yeah, like, it's so what we're saying, like, his defenses might have been, like, depleted a little bit. And then couple it with, the housemaid who's like, you know, you know, uh, wet, standing in the rain, getting wet, her clothes becoming, yeah, and like her, is she being like very attractive?
Oh, dude.
And being confronted with, this, beautiful, wet girl, with, clothes that are see through is just like, you know, how, how is a man to resist? Is what I would say. How is a man to resist that? Um, the correct answer would be, with every last ounce of his strength. But again, like, it may not even be just physical, like a physical thing. Like he could just be emotionally exhausted, which allowed him to succumb to temptation. Again, not trying to excuse it away, but just trying to possibly offer up a answer, just just a perspective on the situation. Um, I don't know, because I'm not married, so I can't really speak on if I was married and a similar situation happened to me. But being a single individual and being presented the same option, but also trying to remember, my my covenant with God, it'd be hard. That's all I'm gonna say. It'd be hard.
Yeah, I'm not, like you said, I am not denigrating the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I fuck, I would. I'm not saying it's not tempting. It wouldn't have been hard. Because yeah, no, she is one beautiful woman. I'll just say that. And I know, like, the wife, Mrs. Kim, she is there's some sort of like, she does have some sort of like, weakness. Like she's kind of not that she's like ill, but like she becomes weak very easily. She's not able to. I'm sure she gets very tired. His daughter is I don't know if it's polio, but there's definitely some sort of infirmment with his daughter. He has kind of a smart aleck kid, boy. And then he has a third kid on the way, and we don't know necessarily how that has affected his life. And maybe it was, there's a lot of pressure that he's going through. He has all these young women throwing themselves at him, and maybe it was just all too much. It's that's I don't know. I'm not trying to make an excuse for um our main character. I'm not saying that like what the women did were right, but it's just one of those interesting questions. Like, what would cause this seemingly devoted husband to just almost right away to give in to this infidelity? Like, it just And maybe for some guys, it's just too much. Like you can't. It's not that they have zero self-control, but it's almost like there's only so much that you can deal with at one time. Like that you can only control so much before you have to unleash the beast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. Again, like I don't know because I'm not married. I don't know how I would respond, if presented with that situation. But as a single man, I can say, and being a believer, I would be tempted. I would be tempted.
Especially when she looks like that. Oof.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would, the other thing this is where the Twilight Zone aspect of this film comes in, because when we meet our characters first, the dad is he's reading this newspaper article about this man who became kind of had an affair with his housemaid, and it caused all these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of it's like, oh, I'm never going to become that. And then we dive into the story, like where we see him having all these girls throw themselves at him giving himself into the housemaid, it causing all these troubles. And then after there's the tragic scene of the housemaid kills his son, poisons his son. She pretty much she blames it on them, but she becomes impregnated after they have their affair. She throws herself down the stairs essentially to kill her baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then is trying to manipulate and blackmail the family. And then in kind of this sick ass Romeo and Juliet thing that she does, she poisons him and herself. She's like, oh, we're gonna be in heaven together, and we'll be together forever by doing this, blah blah blah. And I don't want you to be with anybody else, and forever, and some real crazy shit.
Yeah.
And he ends up she ends up dying first, but he wants to be with his wife, who he actually loves.
Mm-hmm.
And so he in his last ditch effort, crawls to his wife and begs for forgiveness, and kind of has this moment with her, and he dies. And that's where we come back to the scene that we started at the beginning, and this is where the Twilight Zone aspect comes to it, where it's oh, it's it's there's that fourth wall break where he talks to us be careful, guys.
Yeah,
If you you don't think it could happen to you, but it can.
right,
And
yeah.
it's something along those lines. I forget the line.
Yeah, basically keep in your pants, fellas.
Yeah. And then there's something that the housemaid needs help with, and it's the same actress.
Right, yeah.
And that's where the wife is I'm gonna help you. You're a man. You're protected. It's just I think this is why the movie survived, because what we see in the movie, the majority of the movie, I'm sure that's what the director wanted, and wanted to be this tragedy. But it's saved as no. He's just telling a story of what.
Right. It's a cautionary tale.
It's a cautionary tale, not an actual tale.
Right.
That's what saves the movie, barely.
Right. And because again, given the time at which this movie was made and released, it's there's no way that a movie like this could be made unless they added that subversive element at the end, where it's just haha, you thought this was gonna be a tragedy, but keep it in your pants, fellas.
Yeah, because Dong-suk Kim, he's playing the part of Rod Serling, essentially. He's
yeah. He gives the final monologue.
Yeah, he's introducing and ending the story for us, but he's also he's perceiving himself in the role as the husband who gives in to an affair with the housemaid, and seeing like what the results of that were, and what it could have been. He's
Yeah, what
kind
would
of,
it
I
like?
think,
Well, yeah, it's like, kind of like,
how would this play out for my family?
right, exactly. And so like they go through the exercise, but then they like it's they do the Saint Elsewhere kind of thing, where it's like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
all in the mind of a child, you know.
And I think, and in a way, like, I think that that's great. I like the way that they handled that. I think it's a fun way to get around some of the censorship in a lot of ways. I mean, we've certainly seen movies in America that have kind of gone around thing, in a very sneaky way, past the censorship because of certain things that they did. It's like, this movie's really fucked up. Like, A Place in the Sun is a messed up movie. Lolita is a messed up movie. And somehow those got past the censors. It's like, with this really fucked up
Yeah, even
material.
like a spin on like Lolita, like in the late '80s, '90s, like The Crush. That's a messed
Yeah,
up movie.
The Crush is fucked up too.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like old Hollywood like stuff,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
where
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have these really
Yeah,
messed
before
up
when
movies.
like they were like
The Postman always
yeah,
rings.
the standards and whatever board,
The
yeah,
Hays,
was it? Yeah,
yeah, the Hays Code.
the Hays Code, yeah.
The Postman Always Rings Twice. That's a fucked up movie too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of this. I think I was just really like this. This is one of those movies that, I'm gonna come back to this. I really like this movie. I think it's very uncomfortable. Like, it's not like, man, you know what? I need to feel better. Let's watch The Housemaid.
Right, yeah.
That's not
Yeah,
what.
it's in the same category as Wind River. It's like, you know what I haven't watched
Yeah,
in a while. You know what's I haven't watched in a while. Wind River.
yeah, yeah. No
No one
one's
ever
saying
says
that.
that.
It's one of the
No one
greatest
ever says
films
that.
of all time,
It's like, man, I'm
but no
really,
one.
you know what?
I need to watch Wind River again. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
right. So
Fuck,
heavy,
dude.
so dark.
I'm like I'm. I think that like my wife would like that movie, but I'm so hesitant to show her.
It might crush your soul.
It crushed my soul. I
Yeah.
know it's gonna like shatter her soul into 1,000 pieces if it
Yeah.
destroyed my soul.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, no, it's just I really like this movie. It's funny because when we were planning on doing this month, you had mentioned doing you want to do A Postman Always Rings Twice. I watched this and this back to back. So it's just like, and I also watched Dodsworth, which is also a really fucked up movie as well. And like, I watched these movies, back to back to back. And it's like, I'm really depressed by all of this. This is such a they're all black and white, they're all old, and they are all very depressing. So, but like I said, I do like this movie a lot. I'm glad I found it. And it's we look at like some of the old Japanese cinema with a lot of and it's definitely more readily accessible, like especially the Kurosawa films. Like, I can watch every Kurosawa film all on Criterion, and that's not the only place I can watch it. I can watch it on there's definitely some of his movies on HBO. Also, I have the Zatoichi collection, so I have the entire 25 movie collection. But when it comes to Korean cinema, the old stuff, that's a little hard to come by. I bitched about the Vengeance trilogy last week and how pain in the ass that is to find. But like, this is a movie that should have been lost to most people, if not for someone like Martin Scorsese and Bong Joon-ho, who love this director, and they think that Korean cinema should be preserved. The old, if they can find old Korean cinema, they're gonna try to preserve it. And I'm sure those two have talked and worked together to preserve this stuff. Um, And we're like I said, we're coming to a point where people are discovering American stuff and foreign stuff, and it's like, hey, we need to preserve this. It might not be the best film of all time, but we definitely need to preserve it. Like I've seen a lot more Indian cinema, like old Indian cinema recently, that has been more preserved. I know Japanese cinema is being more preserved, Korean cinema for sure, a lot of European stuff, like we talked about Metropolis. Um, and there's been American films that have been more preserved recently. Like I'm sure, I have a feeling there's going to be someday like where we find some of like the silent films that we thought were lost from America that are going to be preserved, found and preserved and like restored. Um, you know, but I just I really like this film a lot. Um,
All right. Well, I mean, if there's nothing else, let's give our ratings and we'll wrap it up.
well, Andy, you're the Korean here, so why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Well, I don't care if it comes up as partiality or favoritism, but I'm gonna give this one a 5.
Yeah, yeah. I can't disagree with you. Like I think it is a super intriguing story.
Mm-hmm.
All the actors are amazing. Even the kids, the
Yeah,
child
the
actors.
son. Yeah,
Really,
the son is your favorite, the little shithead.
he's a freaking Shecky dude. Like what?
For those of
But
you who
he
don't know, Sheki is like saying bastard.
Yeah, he's a little bastard, but I love him. Like he's the Korean Bart Simpson.
Essentially, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good comparison.
he's a shithead,
Yeah,
but I
just a
love
little
him. Like
shithead.
it's funny, and I like all the characters. I think the story is really tight. It is, like I said, it is a disaster. It's a tragic tale. You cannot turn away, and uh, like I said, it's super captivating. I love it to death. It is a 5 star for 5 stars for me too.
All right, there you have it, folks. That's our review of The Housemaid from 1960. Both Robert and I give this a 5. If do yourself a favor and watch this movie. It is great. I mean, even if you have to get a subscription to Criterion, it is well worth the price.
Yeah, I know. Like if you're trying to get the Blu-ray, I think they have the Housemaid you can't buy by itself. You have to get the one of the World Cinema Project box sets. So it's gonna be a little bit more pricey, closer to like $50, but you get like 6 movies in there, including The Housemaid.
Mm.
But yeah,
Oh
if you
well,
don't want to,
also if it's on Prime, so you can rent it for $4 or you can buy it for 15.
oh really? Okay, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, like at the time I when I first watched this, that wasn't available. Um, but or if you wanna get the Criterion subscription for like $10 a month, it's on there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd recommend, uh, you know, renting it on Amazon Prime, and you'll fall in love with it, and then you'll definitely want to get the physical copy.
yeah, and if you get it on if you get the Criterion's streaming subscription, you do get the interviews with Bong Joon-ho and Martin Scorsese talking about the film and its importance. So that's a plus too. So
Yeah, I mean, in truth, like I'm really considering buying the DVD.
dude, I think you should. And the other films that are on there are also really good.
Mm.
Because like I said, I think there's like 6 or 7 movies in that collection.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the World Cinema Project, the Criterion World Cinema Project Blu-ray, I think they have like 2 or 3 volumes,
Mm-hmm.
and The Housemaid is on like one of those volumes. I forget which one. But all those films are pretty good. Those are ones that Martin Scorsese felt that were worthy of his of preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure they're gonna be pretty damn good.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us tonight. I hope you had a good time. I had a good time. I know Rob always has a good time.
Dude, Tuesday is my favorite day of the week. I look
And
forward
I
to.
hope it's all y'all's favorite day of the week as well.
It should be.
Yeah, don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have. The Circular Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts, Twitter and Letterboxd at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circular Jerks Podcast. Oh yeah, and don't forget that we will be appearing on the Cut Above podcast. I don't think they do. I don't think they do a video podcast.
No, it's only audio.
It's
So you
only
can find them
audio.
on Spotify, Apple. I think they're doing iHeartRadio too. I had to look that up. I will have to ask them, but I think they have like 3 or 4 different platforms that you can check out their podcasts. Yeah, check them out. Like they're really good. If you especially if you love horror movies, like those, they're the ones to go to. And
right. And yeah, when our specific episode drops, we'll be sure to let you guys know.
Yeah, we're gonna plug them, and it's kind of funny like that. We're gonna be joining them right as our spooky September theme starts. So yeah, I think it just works.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. Come back next week, and we'll do it all over again. Have a good night.